Well,
It was between 30 and 60 minutes.
it was not incorrect what you said.
No.
Accurate. Increasing our accuracy.
Yeah, I think we're all the way up to about 51.5.
51.2.
Oops.
Oh,
I did it again.
what? Britney Spears?
Pardon me?
It's a Britney Spears song.
I
did it again.
Yeah. Oops. I did it again.
Sorry.
I was hearing myself talking in my head, and I was getting confused.
Where am I?
Okay, I'm going to X that out, and then go over here, and there's another one. There it is. Hello, everyone. Mike Kuipers, Chris Cheatwood, Liz Piper, Thomas Mandrake, Tanya W.,
And more.
Brian Lewis, First Officer Mike, Main Man Micah, Derek Thurman. Derek, are you the same Derek that I'm going to play some feedback today? You sent in some audio feedback, maybe? Let's see. Let me look here in my show folder. Derek. Thomas. Nope, different Derek.
Nope.
Oh, well.
Never mind.
Yeah, never mind. First Officer Mike, which on John McElree, David Ogden. I think, David, we did your feedback last show. And Dan Renner. We're talking about the weather. The weather outside is frightful.
Sorry about that. I'm ready.
Good, we already started. You're only...
Yep. And, oh, wait, hang on. And from across the pond, the little dweeb who thinks he knows how to speak in front of people.
Whoops. No. Hope not. No, it was an old friend of my brother from years back when they were at school together. Says, "Oh, Nicky, I hear you're doing a talk. I might come up and watch you." So,
does he really talk like that?
Yeah, it does a bit.
Was he intoxicated?
He could be. A lovely Dickie Plowman. Anyway,
that's what you should do tomorrow.
Talk and
you should like really just booze it up, and then trip a couple of times on the way up to the podium.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. That would be, wouldn't it? And then fall flat on my face, and that'll be it. I won't have to talk then.
That's right. That's one way to get out of it.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. By the way, I haven't got the I haven't got the live link yet. Why haven't I got a live link?
Because I'm not chat.
Oh, yeah. Look in the group chat in the Hangout, and I put that there for Miss Stephanie as well.
Mm-hmm.
The group chat.
That's too lazy to go to.
Oh, okay. In the Hangout group.
Any place else to find it.
I've never been there before. Let me have a look.
Yeah, take a look there. Upper left-hand corner of mine.
Oh, yeah, there it is. Oh, I see. Watch Jeff Nielsen. Oh, there I am. Hi, everybody. Pop out.
Yeah, be careful about what you're popping out there. It's a family show.
Family show, ladies and gentlemen. Family show.
How are you guys all set up to fly tomorrow? Looks like there's going to be room on your flights and that sort of thing. Well, Steph, you're just going to come across first class, I know.
No, not first class. Slumming it
back.
Concord, something like that. I don't know.
Huh?
You're not flying first class?
I'm not.
Really? Oh.
Really? I think I'm in seat 10G, H, something.
That sounds very close to the front to me.
Thank you, John McElree.
10G.
So how would...
Hi, Mike.
Terribly close.
Hi, Micah. Hi, Liz. Hi, Lizzie. I think there's something coming your way, Lizzie. I can say Lizzie. Because
I have no idea what you're...
I don't know.
I'm talking to Liz. She and Jilly have been rabbiting to each other today about the tennis.
Oh,
the
tennis.
The Australian Open or something.
Oh, I watched with interest the, what's her, Janovic or something like that. What the...
Povich?
Something Povich, the female tennis player.
Oh, really? I can see why you watch her, yes.
Wow, that was a great match.
Yeah.
Something tells me you didn't see much of the actual match.
I did. I was watching it with interest.
Well, I watched
Just
Nadal.
her side of the match.
Oh, was she playing someone?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she was. Yeah. Sharapova, that's it. So Liz can read my mind. She
I was
knows
like,
what
I
I'm
don't know who you're talking
talking-
about.
Well,
I
that
just,
is.
just said Povich and Maury Povich. That's who it was. No, that's not right.
That's what I was thinking of. I was like,
Yeah.
were they doing paternity tests out on the reveals? You are
What aircraft model are you flying, Steph, across the pond?
an Airbus
Hey!
A330.
Oh, an American Airlines type?
Yeah.
Cool.
That is the only
We love
option for a
Airbus.
direct flight to London out of Charlotte.
Yeah,
We love Airbus.
we do. The
We kinda
best.
do.
The best.
Right. Are we going to get going?
Yeah, we're going to get going. Okay, sound check. Oh, wait a minute.
I'm not recording
One
anything.
more thing. Yeah, speaking of that, I should probably get that application up. That's when you say, get it up, Jeff. Still evaluating. Close. Always something else to do.
Always something there to remind me.
Bum, bum, ba, bum, 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 ba, bum, bum. Boom.
I know that song.
It's an old song. For your time.
Dusty
Following file could not be
Springfield,
found.
I
I
think.
don't care right now.
Ah, it's that old man Mike. Old first officer Mike. That career first officer that I know.
Bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-da-da. Do you know the way to San Jose?
No, I definitely know the song. I just
No, I'm not saying you didn't.
oh
I at first I didn't realize it was Do You Know the Way to San Jose until it just popped into my head. Okay, let me look here. I see I need to have input. Oh boy. Go to preferences. Device.
599 days.
I saw that.
But who's counting?
I am.
Only
Oh, that's right. You are.
Yeah.
Okay, in 3 and crew is in stereo 11, 12. No, that's not right. 9, 10. And this should not have anything.
I still haven't found a white, clean pen so I can write rude things on this clapperboard.
Should I bring some over for you? I have
Oh, I think
A
they sell them
selection.
in this country, but you don't have
they
to.
do if you have like a
10.
I don't
Yeah,
know,
we've
like
got a
state-
shop down the road with one. I'm sure. I just haven't bothered to find one.
I'll bring you some.
Arm.
Armena and Mike are pointing out the fact we were singing two different songs.
Oh, okay. That's why I got confused. I've switched from one to the other. Were they?
Always something there to remind me was mine.
Oh, yeah. And then for some reason I switched to Burt Bacharach's.
Do you know?
Do you know the way to San Jose? Are they both Burt Bacharach?
No.
No, it's
Oh.
Dusty
Definitely not.
Springfield. I think was always something there to
What's the
remind me.
matter with me? I don't know what's the matter with me.
Something like that, or Sandy Shaw, or someone like that.
What does Micah know about music? That's a joke, of course.
Written and performed by the same person.
No.
Oh.
And they have kind of a similar chord structure or something, don't they? Maybe?
Dunno.
No, I don't know. Okay. So, it looks like
Clappity clap, clap, clap.
it is, looks like we're recording. Oh, wait a minute. Let me get the cursor in the right place. Stop. Delete all. Yes, delete all. Sorry. W. And now record. Okay, you guys recording?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Ready? I'm not looking at the screen where you guys are, so I'm assuming you're ready to go. So we'll go 3, 2, 1, clap. All right.
Steph is ready, it says. Very good.
I had to change it last second. It said ready for the Bahamas, but then we didn't do that show, so I had to change it to London. But I still have
I know we
I
missed
still
you.
have my palm tree on the because I didn't have time.
Oh,
to change.
neat! Wow,
Ah.
Look at all that art.
See, I have the whole, container of different colored dry erase markers.
Wow,
I'm impressed.
is that what you do when you're at work?
Yep.
She just draws pictures on people's backs.
I am required, if it's one-sided, we are required to make a pen mark. So
To make sure that you're,
technically
yeah.
supposed to be my initials, but
But you draw palm trees.
usually, yeah.
There was a bloke sent to prison here for drawing his initials on someone's body.
What?
He
Like a
he
tattoo
used,
or
well,
With a knife?
No, he used his
chisel?
his I don't know, laser cutting tool to put his initials on someone's liver he had transplanted into them.
Well, that's pretty terrible.
Yeah, they everyone got a bit upset apparently, and
Well-
it was either fined or was put to prison or something. I don't know. But
This is ink that comes off when you shower, so
oh,
not
not
a-
That's
quite-
no fun. You need to
not
get a
quite.
laser etcher thing.
laser etcher.
Yeah.
How about just a brand, just like a cattle
Well,
brand?
that's
or-
what he did. 'Cause
You're
he just branded this liver transplant, just saying, right, this is the one I put in.
Okay. A little crazy.
Weird.
Yeah.
Well, apparently it
Disturb-
caused great distress to the patient. How the hell she could tell, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
If
how
you're
much
ever
could you
gonna
feel
know
that?
No.
How did you? Yeah. How did she find out?
Oh, someone had to go back in again to fix something, and
Oh.
perhaps the transplant didn't work. Or,
What's this?
And then they pulled out the old one and went, "Hang on a minute,
Wait a minute.
whose initials are this?" Of course, what he should have done was put somebody else's initials on it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Tony. Yay. He finally figured out how to get the YouTube chat working on his iPhone. Okay. I'm sorry.
Excellent.
Need to know that. Okay. Let me set this one up right there. Okay. Go to Evernote and over here to there. And we're recording, obviously, on YouTube. And just a double check to make sure that we're still recording in Reaper. We are. Okay. And I think we're ready. All right. Ready? No. Let me turn off the ringer of this telephone.
Nope. Hello.
Okay.
Ready.
Ready. Airline Pilot Guy, episode 307.
Flight 209, are you clear for takeoff? Roger.
Hello, you're listening to the Airline Pilot Guy Show, the view from our side of the cockpit door. I'm Captain Jeff, your host, broadcasting live from Studio 1A in the APG headquarters building in Roswell, Georgia. In today's episode, a 737 swerves off a runway and over a cliff. A man denied boarding because he was wearing too much clothing. And the cat's in the bag. More news, your feedback, and the latest Plain Tales installment, Flowers on the Waves. So get all settled in, tray tables and seatbacks in their upright and locked positions. Electronic devices powered on. Flight 307 is ready for pushback. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Airline Pilot Guy Show. It's an aviation podcast where we're making aviation podcasting great again. And joining me today from her beautiful lakeside cottage on Lake Wiley in South Carolina, We have a doctor, skydiver, marathon runner, strength training junkie, IPA connoisseur, and commercial multi-engine instrument-rated pilot, Dr. Steph.
Hey guys, hey Captain Jeff. And it's actually the snow-covered lakeside cottage today. So rare snow event here in Charlotte. So
Interesting. We're going to talk about the weather.
we will, I'm sure. So
They say you're not supposed to talk about weather on these kind of shows, but we're going to do it anyway.
yeah, but it's related.
Yeah,
Right?
I think so. All right. And also joining us from across the pond in his beautiful, sprawling country estate southwest of London, professional photographer, former RAF fighter pilot, and current captain for an international airline based in London, Captain Nick.
Good evening, Jeff, and hi there, Steph, and hi to all our lovely listeners from the United Kingdom. It's the old pilot here, Captain Nick, and looking forward to a great show as always. And I might just point out, before you two start blathering on about the appalling conditions in America, it's been nice down south here today. We've had a fine day.
Good for you.
Yeah, well, at least somebody's having good weather.
That's right.
I'll have to say that Dana is yet again not able to join us. He is back from his cruise, and we were hoping to hear how all that went and hear how his liver is doing. But he is out on a trip, and he is in the midst of a major reroute. And I think he was supposed to have like a relatively short day and only 2 legs and end up in beautiful tropical Miami, Florida. But instead, he ended up having a 12-hour duty day with 4 flights and ends up in Chicago.
Yep.
So
Sorry,
he's
man.
not very happy about that.
No.
Well,
We're not-
Chicago sounds a nice place.
It is. It's just
It is.
a little
Get
cold.
good pizza there, can't you?
Yeah, but I mean, just given the weather choices, I think that was the
Did somebody say weather?
weather.
U.S. Air Force. Airman of note. Oh, the weather outside is frightful.
But the fire is so delightful. And since we've no place to go, let it snow, yes,
Let it snow.
Make it so.
No, it doesn't show signs of
So, yeah, it doesn't... Well, actually, it did stop here in Atlanta. Yes, another snow event in Atlanta. And is it currently still snowing in
I
Charlotte?
was just looking out the window, and it appears to have stopped, but only just barely. So it was snowing up until just a few minutes ago.
And just about every single place that I went on this last trip, this 3-day trip, it was snowing as well. And extremely cold, especially Kansas City. Man, that was cold. But it's even cold here in Atlanta. When I was driving home today, 20 degrees for Atlanta, Georgia. And that was like up from, I don't know, like 15, 16 degrees this morning. So a little chilly. It's not supposed to get above freezing, which is not good news for the citizens of this fine metropolitan area, because the stuff that didn't evaporate is going to has melted a little bit, and then it's going to refreeze, and then we're going to have all kinds of issues with black ice tomorrow. So should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, they're worried about the same thing here, so we'll see.
Yeah, we're just not equipped like some of the northern locales here in the
No.
U.S.
Someone told me one time, and I'm not sure how true it is, or whether it's true or not, but the city of Charlotte has like 8 snowplows
Really? Total?
total.
Wow. I think Atlanta has more than that.
It may not be true, but someone told me that at one point. It seems about right for the amount of snowplows I see out there.
Leads me to ask the question, how do the snowplow drivers get to work?
That is a good question. They sleep in their snowplows.
They have to be there before it starts snowing.
Yeah.
Well, all 8 of them. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's see. Well, Steph, tell us, because you weren't here last week. We missed you dearly.
I tried to be on the show,
I know,
but
I know.
it just didn't work out with other circumstances.
Yeah, the timing didn't work out.
Timing
quite
didn't
right.
work out. Internet, broadband didn't work out. But anyway, the next day I left to go down to Miami for a night, met up with friends there, and then the next day we all went out on a cruise together to the Bahamas for 3 days. So that was very nice, so much needed, just kind of get away, relax, not do a whole lot, except for, consume some good food, have some alcoholic beverages, sit on the beach for a little while. It wasn't, we did the same trip last year, and last year it was very warm and sunny and just couldn't have asked for better weather. This year, some of that cold weather that we're having kind of made its way down there as well. So it wasn't super cold. It was, mid 70s Fahrenheit, which wasn't bad, but it got overcast at times and it was pretty windy. So that combination made it feel a little bit cooler than perhaps it actually was. But it was still vacation. It was still really nice. Great friends, had a really good time. So
yeah, I saw some pictures of you going to like a chocolate making place.
Yeah, we in Nassau, one of the excursions that they can set up for you off of the ship is you can do all these different things around town. One of them is a chocolate factory tour, which you say chocolate factory, this was really just like a shop, where they make chocolates. But they kind of explain the process. You can sample all the different, the beans along the way and the 100% cacao, which is really bitter. And then you can make your own either dark chocolate, milk chocolate, white chocolate, little chocolates, and take them with you home. So
and then shortly thereafter, because I'm sure you got thirsty from all the chocolate, had to.
So right around the corner, there's a rum distillery. So that was our next stop, and went over there, and oh my goodness, the rum was very good. And the pina colada the bartender made for me was quite strong. So that was fun. And I did not purchase any rum to bring back with me, although that was the purpose of going there for the other ladies. They wanted to bring back a couple bottles of good rum. And after that, we still had some time before we had to be back on the boat. And it wasn't, a terribly nice day. Like I said, it was overcast and windy. So actually found a local brewery, which was called Pirates something or other. I can't remember off the top of my head.
The Caribbean.
Yeah, basically.
No, I think that's a ride, I think.
It is a ride. And I'll find it here in a second. But went there and had they actually had a very nice session IPA. Oh, Pirate Republic was the name of it.
Pilot Republic. Oh.
Pirate Republic. Pirate.
No, Pilot Republic. That's First Officer Craig.
That is First Officer Craig.
And
very,
Captain
very
Rick.
Very similar. Pirate Republic, and the beer was the Island Pirate Ale. It was a session IPA. So I had a couple of those, and they had the U.S. football games on the big screen TVs there. I think it was the Steelers and Jacksonville.
Jacksonville, yeah.
Yeah. So I watched about the first 3/4 of that game there, and then we went back on the ship.
I suppose you weren't allowed to cheer. You had to go, ooh, arr, ooh, arr.
Exactly like that.
Yeah, it's where it's speak like a pirate day every day of the year.
Exactly. So, but no, it was a really, it was just a laid back, casual day, and it was nice. Very
Excellent.
much needed.
Good job.
Very cool. Yeah. Very cool. How about you, Nick? What have you been up to?
Nothing.
All right.
Thanks for asking.
Let's move on.
I quick hop down to lovely Lagos, and with a very fine gentleman who was my training stroke check captain to perform a flight which shows that I am suitable to put forward for my line check, which is quite amusing, I think, after 23 odd years of doing this. But if you actually run out of your recency, in other words, you've actually lapsed, this is a compulsory sort of pre-align check assessment, because you could have lapsed and it could have been like months, I guess. You might have been out, a bit out of practice.
Yeah, but you were only out for a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
Right, but at some point you just make a policy, right? So it doesn't.
That's exactly right. But Paul's a lovely guy. He reminded me that he was my first officer when we landed at Heathrow on the old runway 23, which was, excuse me, the only crosswind runway at Heathrow, very short, no approach shades, and it was a filthy New Year's Eve night with a huge crosswind, lots of turbulence. We did an SRA with no plates, not that you really need them, but it's nice to know the go around, onto that runway in the hissing rain, and I had the flu, and it was all a bit of a nightmare, but we got it down safely. And he'd been working with me on that. Now he's a very grand captain, and a trainer. So he and I sat and chewed and talked about old stories from way back when. And so now I'm fit to go and do a proper line check.
Well, you could have just knocked it out on that one, right?
Well, we could have done, but unfortunately, he can't give me a line check sitting in the first officer's seat.
Oh.
You have to have a proper first officer sitting in the first officer's seat, and he has to sit behind and observe.
I see.
There
I see.
you go.
Well,
It seems kind of odd that they would let you do that flight before a line. That just.
Well, the
I
part
get
of the
why, but-
reason is that when you're doing your line check, the captain being checked is actually the captain on the flight. But when you have let your line check lapse, you can't be a captain on the flight until you've done this AOC check, assessment of competency, because the line checker isn't sitting at the controls. So that company has to look at you and go, yes, you're competent to a line check. It's kind of
I gotcha.
belt and braces, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
So, hey, I think your dad is in the chat room, Nick.
Really?
Yes,
Lovely.
Anders, and you're Anders' son, right?
I am. Oh, actually, but he's Eric's son. So
Well, he's Eric's son,
Eric's
but he's Anders.
Yeah.
And
so
yours,
I guess
and you're Anders' son.
Anders' son. Yeah. Wow.
How does that actually work? You know, because I'm Nielsen, and so that means it was son of Niels. But at some point, how does that work? Nielsen, son. Neil. No.
Yeah. I guess. But Anders might be able to explain. But
He might be able to.
My family does hail from Scandinavia. Scanda hooligans. That's where they live.
Scandinavians.
But that's in the distant past. Most of my family, of course, I've had several generations in Australia. So that's how the name got kind of changed a little as well.
Oh, very interesting. Oh, speaking of interesting, one of our APG community members, he sent in feedback, and I think Dr. Steph has met with Corey. He's a first officer. I guess he's out of training now. Or is he flying the line?
No, he's actually back here in Charlotte for training now because there was a period of time where it was delayed. So he was here to do like the in-dock week, and then they got delayed. So now he's actually back for training. So hopefully we'll be getting together sometime this month if it works out for our schedules. So
sweet. Well, anyway, he sent this to us. He said, Corey Cave here again. Thank you for reading my feedback on episode 305. Big news after getting back my systems exam in which I got a 97%. That deserves this. Let's see. I might add.
97? You creep.
Yeah. Well, what's wrong? How can you couldn't have gotten 100%? Come on.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. He's teacher's pet. That's who he is.
Anyway, he said, I was approached by the director of training and was asked to be interviewed this Wednesday, which is today, the day that we're recording the show, January 17th on the CBS Nightly News. And that's the big national news, I believe.
Yeah, one of them.
Wow.
They are doing a story on the pilot shortage and wanted to speak with a new hire pilot who went through the 1,500-hour process. It will be nationally broadcasted, so I hope I do a good job. Wish me luck. Hopefully, I picked up good technique from the crew. And then he says, ha ha, wait.
Hey.
Hey.
I think that was probably well-deserved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was tongue-in-cheek, was it?
Thanks again for the support and proud to be in the community.
I must admit, the last thing I think an airline pilot should want to be on is the CBS Nightly News.
Yeah, I don't want to be on the news.
No, I don't want to be.
There's reasons why you
never
don't
want
want to be on the news, but this is a good reason, right? This is
okay.
Talk about the profession.
We were briefing our approach into Atlanta this morning, and the breaking action reports were 333, which is medium breaking. And so we started doing the little calculations, our weight and everything else. And I said, I don't care. You know, just keep us out of the news. I do not want to be on the news.
I don't want to be there with Corey.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Corey, I think you're going to do a fantastic job, and I can't wait to watch it. So
Yeah, me too.
Good luck, I should say. Can someone please post the clip on Twitter or something?
Yeah, I'll try to record that. And what time would that come on? Would that be
it
like...
probably comes on at like 6 or 6:30. So I might have to go while we're doing Plain Tales. I'll go.
Oh, shoot.
Record.
Yeah. Okay. Do that because we need to play that.
It's almost 4:00 now, so
Because
I don't know if
think...
it'll actually air tonight or if they would record it and air it another night. I
Oh.
don't know. I'll record
Oh.
tonight though, so we'll see.
Okay. Well, let's see. And then anybody in the live chat room right now, maybe we could have some backup recordings as well.
Yeah. Liz
Get it all
Piper.
covered. Yeah. Okay. So me, I was on a trip, as I just mentioned, 3-day trip, and I had a big meetup planned in Kansas City. Remember, Tom Seagrave sent us some audio feedback all about, because he was setting the whole thing up, running it, presenting it, whatever. What's the right word? He was the coordinator organizer. That's another good one for the event. And so that first day was a long day. We started early in the morning, and went to Minneapolis from Atlanta, and then to Milwaukee, and then back to Minneapolis, and then we were supposed to wait, I don't know, about an hour and a half or so, and deadhead on one of our regional carriers to Kansas City. And we got to the gate and looked at the monitor, and it got that same feeling that many of you listening to the show who travel as passengers probably get when you look up at the monitor or look at the screen and it says delayed. And we went, oh no. And then it was delayed, I think, initially about an hour or so. And then it was delayed even more. And then finally it just got to the point where by the time we would have made it into Kansas City, there would hardly be time to go and enjoy barbecue and, talk with other fellow Av geeks in the Kansas City area. And we were also thinking to ourselves, it's a long drive from the airport to downtown Kansas City, Missouri, where our long layover hotel is. And we decided that we'd rather stay closer to the airport to kind of get a little bit more rest. And so we had our company change our hotel to a hotel closer by. And so the whole thing basically went down the tubes. We didn't have a meetup. Unfortunately, we didn't have our barbecue fix. And this is the first officer that I fly with a lot, and we always make it a point to eat barbecue on every layover. And we didn't have any barbecue at all this whole trip. It was
tragic.
so sad.
It was
tragic.
That's such a shame. 'Cause as you can see, I have actually been there.
I see that. Look at that on the screen.
Barbecue. Wow, look at that.
Aren't you fancy?
Nice. Yeah.
So what we're going to do is next month I have a layover in Kansas City, and I'll be there. I'll get in much earlier in the day, so we're going to try to set it up for that. So
A rain check. Good.
yes, a rain check. Okay, so I just wanted to mention that, and let's see. So I was in Kansas City that first night, and then yesterday made it to, or early afternoon, to Cleveland, and met up with James, another member of our great community, and we had a quick bite to eat over at Bar Louie in downtown Cleveland, and it was very nice to see James. And he made it without getting a ticket. Now, I'm not sure if he got a ticket on the way back home, but we'll see. But anyways, great seeing you, James. I see that he's in the live chat room. And so if you want to keep track of what we're doing and if we have any meetups scheduled, whether they be long-term planning kind of things or last-minute thing, join Slack. And Hillel will tell you at the end of the show how you can become a member of our Slack team. And that's one of our social media outlets for the APG show, as well as Facebook and Twitter. So there we go. Yeah, it was very cold, James says, in Cleveland. And I agree. And I don't know why anybody wants to live in that area with those cold temperatures year-round. But anyway, it's a beautiful city, lovely
by the
people.
way, love everyone that lives there.
Love
So,
everybody. Great city. No, seriously.
Just cold.
It's just really cold. Okay. Anything else? I don't think so.
No?
Well, then it's time to do some singing. It's kind of loud. Let me start that over.
I love coffee.
Take two.
Johnny, how much more coffee?
No thanks.
I love coffee, I love tea, I love the Java Jive and it loves me. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup, a cup, a cup, a cup, a cup. All right, the Coffee Fund. While they sing the Java Jive in the background, we're going to talk about the Coffee Fund, which is your way to take ownership in this darn show that we call the Airline Pilot Guy Show. And you can participate in so many ways. You can send us feedback and that sort of thing and attend meetups and all that. But you can also, if you have the resources to do so, support us financially. And that's a great way to support the show, if you're able to do so. And we call the folks that do the Coffee Fund Cadre. And since the last episode, we have a couple of folks who use the PayPal method, the Coffee Fund Classic method. And those folks are Varuna Srivastava and Mahoots Karim. And both gave very nice donations via the Coffee Fund Classic method. And so thank you very much for that. And just one more mention, Simzation. Last show I talked about the fact that this person gave a really, really generous donation, one-time donation. Well, hopefully it's not one time. And looked at the website before we started the show, and I believe this person is in the Netherlands and has a business selling pieces of airplanes and cockpits and all kinds of stuff for people that want to do a fancy home PC simulator thing. Well, I guess it wouldn't be a PC sim, but anyway, like your own home simulator setup. So check it out. That's simzation.com. SIMZATION.com. Okay, continuing on with the Coffee Fund, there's also another way you can support us, and it's called Patreon. You can become a patron of the show via Patreon. And since the last episode, we've had several new patrons of the show. Stuart Thompson, I'm not sure if I mentioned him on the last time. I think I did. But if not, Stuart Thompson, Zachary Lorden, Ryan Kohlberg, Simon Dilly, Ruben Wells, and Oxford Amir. All new producers of the Airline Pilot Guy Show. So thank you very much for that, folks. And again, information about how you can learn about joining the Coffee Fund over at airlinepilotguy.com/coffee. Poop, I forgot to reset the volume. Stop.
Stand by for news.
Did I mention I'm tired? These early mornings are...
You and me.
All this button pushing. It must be really
Yeah,
difficult.
It is. My brain's not in gear. Let's start with this from the Aviation Herald. A Pegasus Boeing 737-800 registration Tango Charlie, Charlie Papa Foxtrot, performing flight 8622 from Ankara to... How do you pronounce that? Trabzon? Turkey? I don't know.
I have no idea.
Yeah,
That sounds
I
close
haven't
enough.
been there, but Trabzon sounds about right.
Okay. With 162 passengers, 6 crew, landed on Trabzon's runway 11 at 2326 local, but veered left off the runway, went down a slope, and came to a stop on soft ground just short of the sea, about 60 meters before the runway end and about 60 meters to the left of the left runway edge. The aircraft was evacuated. There were no injuries, and the aircraft sustained substantial damage. And the latest update on the Aviation Herald regarding this accident from yesterday on January 16th, 2018, Trabzon's prosecution office added, the captain stated that the first officer landed the aircraft. The aircraft, however, did not slow down during rollout. The captain took control of the aircraft and applied brakes. At this time, the aircraft veered left. The right-hand engine accelerated when the aircraft was already off the left edge of the runway. The aircraft ran over soft ground for some brief moments, then went over the cliff. The first officer reported that the weather was rainy, the runway was wet, the aircraft did not slow down after the wheels touched down. The aircraft veered to the left, the captain took control, the right-hand engine accelerated. And Simon puts in here editorial note, there is no official confirmation of a thrust reverser being locked out, as rumors on the internet claim. So I guess there's a lot of chatter on the internet about this thing. But in the paragraph before, they talk about the right-hand engine suddenly accelerating in forward thrust unintentionally. And so I wonder if they just reacted by pushing up the throttle instead of like using the reverse on that engine. I'm not sure exactly what that means.
No, it's kind of ambiguous, isn't it? It's like unintentionally, but how so?
It sounds like there was some kind of a mistake made in trying to stop the airplane, but I don't know.
Oh, yeah. It certainly sounds like the mistake was with the engines. I don't know how you control the throttles in a Boeing. Do you know, Jeff, how you actually engage it? And are we talking more...
Are you talking about reverse
Boeing?
thrust?
Yeah. And do you actually have to... Do you just pull levers on the back? Like
you close the throttles, and then I believe if just forward of the throttle knobs on the thrust lever are these other levers or levers that control reverse thrust, if I'm remembering correctly. Then you pull them up and over the top of the throttle knobs to engage the reverse thrust. So I'm not sure how... Yeah. You could accidentally, instead of activating the reverse thrust, pushing the throttle forward to activate. So I must have a misunderstanding.
Too,
yeah.
Which is strange.
Well, it certainly sounds like they had uneven thrust. You'd have to have something fairly dramatic happen to force it that far off the runway. You see, generally speaking, there was no wind. So once you're established on the runway, even if you're aquaplane, you're going to tend to go in a straight line. You're not going to turn through 90 degrees. Something had to turn that downed airplane through 90 degrees. And it doesn't sound like the brakes were doing much work. They were having trouble stopping. So I'd be tempted to think it's not the brakes. They were probably going reasonably slow, so it's probably not an aerodynamic effect. The only thing that's left is really the engine. So it sounds like it might have been an asymmetric thrust problem, whether it was one reverser in and not on the other side, dragging the airplane across, or they actually managed to get on the right-hand engine, which perhaps didn't have a reverser. I don't know whether that will prove to be the case or not. Someone jogged the throttle up. Could have happened, I guess. I don't know.
And I would bet that, I suspect that perhaps the runway was not grooved or porous friction overlay kind of thing. I know that a lot of places in the world away from the United States and UK and bigger European cities, they don't routinely groove the runways or make it so that you have more friction to work with. So that might be the reason why it wasn't slowing down, because they said it was raining and at some point I think they said it was kind of heavy rain. No, it was light rain according to the ATIS. But the other thing is that if braking is not effective immediately, something to think about is whether or not the spoiler is actually the auto spoiler system activated, because that'll immediately dump the lift on the wing and really put all the weight of the airplane on the gear system and making braking much more effective. So
good point. Very good point.
I don't know. I'm hoping that a lot of times they say that in these kind of instances with the Turkish carriers and things happening over there, they're not always very transparent with their accident investigations. And I'm hoping that they will be on this one so we can find out what happened.
Yeah. I mean, it would have just been a straightforward runway excursion, really, if it hadn't been for that damn cliff getting in the way.
Oh, I know. Right. You got to look at these pictures.
I know, that's
the
why it
airport's
was
in a
on
very
the...
dramatic location as it is.
Absolutely.
There's not
So,
a lot
yeah,
of.
they would have probably, it probably would have been, no, I've just brushed over. Oh, no, I won't say much about that. But the fact it was sitting there, it was on the front page of the Times, for heaven's sake. So
Yeah.
I opened my newspaper and went, whoa, that's impressive.
Unfortunately, contributed to probably a lot more damage to the aircraft than if it had just, left a level prepared
Oh,
surface and into
yeah.
a grassy field or
Yeah.
something. So
I mean, it looks like they left the right-hand engine behind,
they
didn't they?
did, yeah. There are definitely parts.
Actually, no,
separated
it went ahead of the airplane.
Ahead,
It's
yes.
actually in the water.
Well, okay. Well, perhaps that indicates that there was some thrust on it when it got jarred off the wing. It kind of shot forward. But whatever. I mean, the only thing someone's asking if we've ever had a close call ourselves. The only thing that's ever happened to me that's been even vaguely close to me, this was a really mean instructor in the simulator who, on one of our standard practice, rejected takeoffs. I didn't really I knew there was an engine fault, so I rejected the takeoff. I didn't quite get a chance to see what it was. There was multiple faults on that particular engine, but I had all the reversers out, and I'm slowing the airplane down, and we've got plenty of runway left. So I'm thinking, oh, this is easy. When we get to 70 knots, we normally bring the reversers back to idle, and then as we finish slowing, we disengage them. So I brought the reversers back to idle, and then the moment I clicked them out, the airplane suddenly started veering off the runway, and I'm going, what the hell's going on? I've got full brake, and we're just skidding off the runway. We're going quite slowly, but we skid off onto the pretty grass, and I'm going, what the hell's going on? And of course, it turned out that amongst the faults he gave me was a FADEC fault on the outboard engine on my right-hand side. That meant that engine was stuck at full thrust. So it was fine while I had the reversers out, because they were all giving me retardation. But the moment I had brought the engines back to idle and then deselected the reversers, that one engine was left at full power. And that one engine at full power was sufficient to swing us off the runway in a very similar manner that might have happened to this plane.
Wow.
Well, it is pretty impressive. If you're flying a multi-engine aircraft and you have an engine failure right after you push the throttle forward, you really have to bring that power back to idle quickly. Otherwise, it will take you right off the edge of the runway in a hurry. So,
Yep.
I hope that we're able to hear exactly what happened in this case. And there was a lot of discussion about how they were going to, get that airplane off of this cliff. It's kind of like a 45, 50 degree angle pointed down. Again, you'll have to look in the show notes. And
I think they should just leave it there and turn it into a novelty slide or something, just like that 747.
in Oregon. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, or maybe as a warning or reminder to all the pilots that operate in and out there that it doesn't take long to get yourself into a bad situation.
Yep.
Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah. So interesting one there. Yeah. When I first saw the news report on this and I looked at the picture, I went, "Oh my gosh, that is like scary looking, freaky looking."
Do you know how long? I didn't look it up. Do you know how long this runway is? I'm sure it says up here somewhere.
I don't know.
Because they were all the way down at the far end of the runway too. They used up all of the runway.
Yep.
Where they actually veered off.
I don't think it says. Maybe somebody can access that runway airport diagram from that particular city.
I was chatting to Paul on my last trip about this, and on the way home. And he said, well, do you think he just mistook the turn off? Instead of turning off to the right, he just turned off to the left. Probably not. I don't know. Because it was at night, wasn't it?
It was raining, but I think you'd have to be really not paying attention.
I think you're right, Stu.
That's an understatement. So
Yeah.
I certainly hope that that's not the case. Yeah, I thought it was a left-hand turn-off. Turns out it wasn't.
Oops.
And it's amazing that nobody got hurt in this.
Hurt, yeah.
Wow. How close that thing was to actually going into the water.
That would have been a different story.
Big different story. Let's see. This was, I think I don't remember exactly where I saw this, but it was from a TSA Instagram post. I don't know if it's an official TSA Instagram account.
I didn't realize that TSA had an Instagram account, but I'll have to start following them.
Yeah, I maybe they do. So it shows a picture, because that's what, Instagram you do. You post your pictures there, of a bright orange suitcase, a roller bag, with the thing unzipped and the top kind of opened up, and there's a cute little kitty in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's cute. It looks a little confused, a little concerned.
Yep, the cat's name is Slim.
Good job.
Slim's owners packed her in their checked bag. While this could have been extremely dangerous for the 6-month-old cat, Slim is just fine and is currently residing under the care of the the Humane Society of Northwestern Pennsylvania, because apparently the owners of Slim were not acting in a humane way.
I would not give that cat back to someone who packed it in a piece of luggage.
The cat is
horrible.
Go ahead.
I just wonder how many doses of X-rays it's had, because those bags go through some pretty intense X-ray machines. Once you check them, and I'm just wondering how many of those.
How many of its 9 lives did it use up?
Yeah, exactly right.
Well, I think that Slim will be easy to see at the Humane Society at night, because it's the one that's glowing. So, folks, public service announcement from the APG show. Do not put live animals in your checked luggage, because they're going to get zapped by, as we just mentioned, very, very strong microwaves.
And if you're in America anyway, you just go on the internet, get yourself a little form that says that your animal is necessary for you to be calm and quiet on the airplane, and then you carry it on for free.
Yeah, there you go.
Don't do that. Please
I know.
don't.
That's what. Yeah.
A little assist cat.
So.
Just please be a responsible pet owner. You can't do. This is a cruel and unusual thing to do to an animal. So
Use your head. Come on. Liz sent this in, and I threw it in the news folder because I thought it was newsworthy, and we don't have a lot of news this week. This passenger was turned away from 2 flights after wearing 10 layers of clothing to avoid a luggage fee. So apparently this guy, Ryan, what does he call himself? Ryan Hawaii. Ryan Carney Williams, he goes by Ryan Hawaii, was traveling from Iceland to London and was turned away from a British Airways flight after he wore 8 pairs of pants and 10 shirts to avoid paying for excess luggage. Let's see. He was due to fly from Keflavik Airport on Wednesday when he was refused a boarding pass by the airline. He was reportedly stopped from boarding his flight back to the UK after he put on all his clothes that wouldn't fit in his checked luggage. And taking to his social media page to document the debacle, Mr. Hawaii tweeted, @British_Airways, hi, being held at Iceland Keflavik Airport because I had no baggage, put all the clothes on, and they still won't let me on. Racial profiling? Well, no. Sir, no. This is not racial profiling. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. When you do something like this, people are wondering whether you are mentally stable. Let's see. So, sadly for Mr. Hawaii, the ordeal did not end there. After he tried that with British Airways, he tried to go on another flight. This one with EasyJet on the following day. And again, he was refused from 2 flights in 2 days for no valid reason, he tweeted. EasyJet explained that the captain and ground crew were concerned about reports from the previous day and that Mr. Hawaii was provided with a full refund. British Airways vehemently, thank you. Vehemently. Wow, I'm tired. They very strongly denied that the incident had anything to do with the man's race. And a spokeswoman said the decision to deny boarding was absolutely not based on race. We do not tolerate threatening or abusive behavior from any customer and will always take the appropriate action. So,
you got to post the guy's selfie picture because it's it's just great. It's perfect. His facial expression, everything. Mm-hmm. And you can clearly see he's wearing many layers of clothing.
Yeah, he must have looked like a Michelin man.
I don't know how he would have fit in the seat.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Brian.
Yeah, he eventually got back with Norwegian, but it doesn't say whether he was wearing all 10 layers when he tried to get on Norwegian.
I'm wondering if somebody said, look, just put this stuff in these bags here.
You're at an airport. They actually probably sell luggage here. You can just go get a bag, pay the bag fee.
So, going back to the previous, or the first news item, the runway at Trabzon. Well, I thought it was there. What happened to it?
It says message retracted.
Oh, okay.
So maybe it was incorrect. I don't know. I'll wait for him to. I remember what he said. It was like 8,000 something, but maybe it was. Yeah. Maybe he's fixing an error. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Brian, let us know. But he's our crack chat room team, APG crew, or APG community is working on it. Is on it right now. Okay. Anyway, back to this incident with Mr. Hawaii. This is a little picture of the text from EasyJet. They responded to him, "I'm sorry to hear about your experiences with British Airways and ourselves, Ryan. Although we're not in a position to comment on the actions that British Airways took, the captain for your EasyJet flight was made aware of what happened the previous day, and because of this, the captain took the decision to offload you from this flight. Because of this, I'm afraid that we can't offer you a refund or for your booking under our terms and conditions." And they give him a nice little link. You can read the terms and conditions. And anyway, so
does it say you can't wear 10 layers of clothing in their terms and conditions?
I wonder. Probably not.
Probably does not, but that might be, there's things you can make a judgment call about that don't have to be explicitly spelled out sometimes, correct?
Yeah, that's true. But I love the bit right at the end there where it says James McKelver, a singer with a Scottish 5-piece band, Rewind, lost consciousness flying from London to Glasgow, which is not a long flight, in 2015 after wearing 12 layers of clothing.
See, it was just for his own health and safety.
Absolutely.
They were just trying to make sure he wouldn't die.
You could make that argument, yeah.
Yeah, very true.
Oh, that's funny. Lost consciousness because he was wearing so many clothes. Okay, so
like a 30-minute flight too? It's like 45 minutes.
Brian Lewis is back again. He restated his retracted statement. Trabzon runway is 8,661 feet. So that's a good, that's a good runway. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, that's all I had in the news folder. So
that was good news, though.
Good news, yeah. Some fun stuff. And now, of course, it's time for us to move on to the best part of the show, which, of course, is your feedback. Of course.
Captain, incoming message.
How many times can I say, of course, in a paragraph? A lot.
A horse is a horse. A horse is a horse, of course, of course.
Of course. Whoa, Wilbur. Yeah, you'll have to look that up. Google it. Okay, let's see. On the 23rd day of Christmas, my true love. No, wait, what were we going to do? On the 23rd day of Christmas, Ross in England sent this to us. No, he sent this to us a long time ago, actually.
It's just the 23rd day of Christmas where we're actually getting to read
yes.
Ross's feedback.
He sent this before Christmas, actually. He said, "First, I wanted to thank you for the efforts you've put in this year." He's talking about the 2017 year. "I really enjoy the shows every week. My APG syndrome is as bad as ever, and there's no cure on the horizon. Secondly, I wanted to ask what you thought was the most enjoyable element about the L-1011. It seems to me it was a really advanced plane for its time, yet the 747 gets so much more mindshare from people. I found an old promotional film about the L-1011 on YouTube that, despite its poor audio, is an interesting watch." And then he gives us the YouTube link, which we'll have in the show notes. And finally, he's topped up the coffee fund. I know it's an insignificant amount given the effort you guys all put in, but hopefully the gesture goes some way to showing my appreciation for all you do. Thank you, Ross. We do appreciate it.
Yeah,
and
thanks very much.
We're glad that you appreciate it as well. He says, "Merry Christmas to you all. Ross in England."
Happy New Year, Ross.
Yes, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And we hope you had a good Christmas, too.
And an early
Christmas 2018.
Yes. And an early Valentine's Day and St. Patrick's Day. We'll
just get all the holidays in at the beginning of the year. That way we don't have to worry about.
The most enjoyable element about the L-1011, that's a tough one because there are so many good things about the L-1011. It was a great hand-flying airplane, and it was ahead of its time technologically. It was just comfortable and fast, and a great hand-flying jet. I mean, that's more than one thing. I don't know. I can't really tell you. It's just a great airplane. Now, the 747, I think, rightfully gets a lot of mind share from people because it was the first jumbo jet. So, it holds that place. It will always hold that place in history, I guess. So, yeah, I guess that's all I have to say about that. Want to add anything? Anybody?
No, I never even flew on one. How
That's a
sad
shame.
is that?
You would have loved it.
I sucked gas from a few. That sounds terrible, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, wait, this is a good time for this.
Family show, ladies and gentlemen. Family show.
At first, I thought you were just going to say you sucked. And I said, well, you don't be so hard on yourself, sir.
I was going to ask for an explanation, but I'm not sure if I want him to expand on that
In-flight
anymore.
aerial refueling, I think, is what he's referring to.
Yes, yeah. We had a number of them in the Royal Air Force, and I took fuel from a number of them.
Yeah, the first, the thing that popped into my head when you said that was you out there like siphoning gas out of the tank.
That's what I had, that picture, and then I also had the picture of maybe he was just like drafting off of one, like flying his plane, like. But then, I did realize the third thing that came to mind.
Yeah,
Was the
you
actual
get pretty close when you're doing that, but unfortunately, you've got to push this big heavy hose up into the drum, and that actually is quite hard work. So damn tornado used to often need one engine in burner to get the damn thing to stay in contact because of the weight of the hose and the fact that it was such a lousy airplane.
That doesn't sound very good.
No, it was a bit tricksy. Getting an engine into burner while you're in contact behind the tanker was a bit of a trick.
Yeah, you probably got a little bump from that too, right?
Yeah, and then you started running in pretty fast, so you had to get the other engine back and try and keep reasonably straight at the same time. So it was doable, but
Probably some tricky rudder work as well.
a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Huh. Well,
Sounds
very
like
cool.
fun flying.
Yeah, it does. And for those of you wondering, yes, the Royal Air Force had, I don't know how many, 5? Or maybe perhaps at one time even more L-1011s that were configured for aerial refueling tankers. We didn't do any of them here. No?
Well, it wasn't an ideal airplane for it. They only put a center pod on. Well, it wasn't a pod. It was a hoodoo, an internal.
You're just making these words up, aren't you?
Hydraulically operated something drum. Oh, anyway. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
okay. That really does stand for something.
Acronym.
A hoodoo.
Yeah.
Sounded like we were doing like Dr. Zeus.
Or the Game of Thrones. Hoodoo. Hoda. But if they stuck a couple of wing pods on as well with additional hoses, it would have been a much more useful airplane. But they just put 2 hoses on the center line, which meant that you could only get one aircraft onto the tanker at once. Which means if you've got an 8 ship and you're trying to get a whole 8th ship through and gas them and get them on their way, the number 8 was going to be pretty low on fuel when it became his turn to make contact. So, it just took forever. That was the problem with it.
Well, interesting anecdotal story regarding that airplane. Well, thank you, Ross. And again, thank you for your support of the show. And moving on to the next one, we have Ben. He sent this in. He's in Milwaukee. I came across the linked picture of a Navy SEAL being taken off an MD-88 in Chicago today. And this was not
January
too long
3rd?
ago. Yeah, I think that's it. Yep, January 3rd. And he said, I saw you were actually on a layover in Chicago O'Hare. Might this have been your flight? It was, actually. I don't know the details of the soldier or where he was coming from, but I thought I might ask. And yes, what is this? What did you hear? I'm not sure. Okay, you guys
I'm
are
sorry,
having
I'm totally ruining this very serious piece of feedback.
No, I was just squirrel. I was distracted.
Yeah.
I saw something pop up, and those guys are having
You're doing a Dana.
Yes, oh, man. I am doing a Dana. Sorry. Wow. Okay. I'm going to start over. Ben writes, I came across the linked picture of a Navy SEAL being taken off an MD-88 in Chicago today. Cross-checked, creeped. Captain Jeff's schedule saw that you were actually on a layover at Chicago. Might this have been your flight? I don't know the details of the soldier or where he was coming from, but I thought I might ask. And yes, indeed, it was a flight that I performed from Atlanta to Chicago O'Hare on the 3rd of January, or somewhere in there, the beginning of the month. And let's see, to give this feedback some means of discussion, I would assume that you are made aware when you are transporting human remains. How often does this occur, and is there anything special you need to do for that flight? Are there special permits or procedures you need to follow? So if it's a fallen soldier that is being escorted by a military escort, as was the case in this situation, yes, we are made aware of it. In fact, usually the day or so before we have the flight, we get a call as captain of the flight that's carrying the fallen soldier, a phone call or voicemail from one of the departments in the chief pilot's office that basically give you a heads up that you're going to be carrying a fallen soldier, that the honor guard is going to be present. There'll be like a ceremony from the honor guard loading the remains on the airplane before we leave Atlanta, and there'll normally be some kind of a special reception at the arrival airport. And let me tell you what, Chicago O'Hare, well, first of all, two things. The honor guard at my airline in Atlanta is just awesome. They've, they decorate these special carriers, like normally the things that you see with the with the luggage and such. What do they call luggage carts? They decorate them and, put the American flags all over them, and they have all kinds of stuff. And they usually have several of these volunteers that are ramp workers out there to do this duty, and they don't get paid for it, and they just wanted to honor the veterans and the fallen soldiers, and they have a pretty cool thing going on there. In fact, in a moment here, I'll tell you about the fact that the honor guard was awarded I'll just tell you now. The honor guard at my airline was awarded the Veterans of Foreign Wars Americanism Award, and so there's some pictures here of them doing their loading and offloading of human remains, and they're very respectful, and it's always very poignant when you see this, and it really gets a good response from passengers as well when they can witness this.
Do you usually have the passengers remain seated until they have the remains off the plane?
Yeah, so what we do is I'll make an announcement, and if I know anything about this particular soldier, I'll mention that as well. In this case, I didn't. It was a Navy SEAL that lost his life, and I'm not sure what the circumstance was. And one of his good buddies, was traveling along, as well as the military escort, and in full dress uniform. Mm-hmm. Very impressive. And what I'll say is, you may have noticed that we have a military soldier here, and he's escorting the remains of a fallen soldier. And when we arrive, and in this case Chicago, we would like everybody to remain seated until the military escort can make his way up to the front door, so that he can get out first, or she can get out first, and then they will be escorted down to the ramp, and then the ceremony, the process of getting the remains off the airplane will take place. And so in this case, it wasn't the day before, it was like that morning, and I got a call and a voicemail on my phone. I didn't even really notice it until right before we started boarding the flight. And so I quickly coordinated the whole thing and made sure that the gate agent knew that there was a military escort, and that he was as close to the front as possible. And in fact, when he got on the airplane, one of our first class passengers got out of his seat and said, "No, you can sit right here." So he and the buddy of this fallen SEAL were up in first class, and that was a nice move on the part of that first class passenger. And then when we got up to Chicago and hit the ramp, and we're taxiing around to our gate, I saw all these emergency vehicles and with all the lights going and everything else. And the first thing that came to my head was like, what is going on over there? I mean, somebody must have had some kind of an accident or something, because I mean, I don't recall ever seeing. There must have been at least 10 airport rescue firefighting equipment vehicles and police cars and everything else. They all had their lights going. And as we got closer, I realized it was parked right. They were parked right at our gate, and I'm thinking, "Oh, holy cow! This is for the fallen seal." And so we kind of, slowly crept over there, made sure that everything was good, and we taxied in, made the announcement once again to the passengers to remain seated. And wow, it's just in this picture here that Ben sent. Somebody snapped a photo of our airplane when they were waiting in the terminal. And you really can't, it doesn't do it justice, because on the left side of the photo, you'll see maybe one, maybe two fire trucks over there. But behind the jetway, and you can't see it in this photo, there were just a whole bunch more vehicles with all their lights on. And it was just really, really poignant. And it was special. And I'm glad I got a chance to be a part of it.
Yeah. Well,
it's not something that I've ever come across in the UK. I think the military do all the moving of that sort of thing. But it must have been very touching.
It was.
Yeah.
Now, as far as human remains in general, if it's not something like this, when you have a military escort and it's a fallen soldier, if it's just somebody's remains, we get, well, the only way we really know is if we're doing a walk around and the cargo doors open and you happen to see it, or you might see them actually loading the box of the human around the coffin. We get a little note in our weight and balance data, or at the bottom it will say human remains. So that's sometimes the only way we know that we have human remains on board the airplane.
Gotcha.
So.
We get it on our, not that it's not in the dangerous cargo bit, but on the same NOTOC that we get dangerous cargo, it's down the bottom under special cargo. If we're carrying anything like a human organ or serum or blood or human remains, it's down there.
Okay, yeah. The same sort of system that we have. Okay, well, thank you, Ben. And again, congratulations to my airline's Honor Guard. It's a volunteer network of hundreds of frontline employees who provide services for fallen soldiers being flown home. And again, they were honored by the Veterans of Foreign Wars with the Americanism Award. This organization's top honor. It recognizes people and institutions for their commitment to patriotism and their support of military women and men. So, congratulations.
Well done.
All right. Moving on. Boy, this is I just realized this is kind of a down show. We just talked about fallen soldier, human remains. Our Plain Tales installment this week is kind of a downer.
Well, and, sometimes, you just have to bring a little bit of levity and gravity back to the show. They can't all be.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe it was just I picked too many really down ones for our show this week.
I feel like almost everything in life just comes in cycles, right? So you get all of this type of story all at once, and then all of this other type of event all at once. So
all right, let's just stay with the death thing.
This is just the week for
get the death thing over and done with.
Yeah.
Then I can talk about the HDU. I got the Hoodoo, which actually stands for hydraulic drum unit. There you go.
Of course. I mean, everybody knows that.
Hodor.
Who knew? Okay. Andreas says, "Hi, hello, Captain Jeff and crew. January 3rd, the charter airline Jet Time performed a flight between Las Palmas and the Canary Islands to my hometown, Östersund. In mid-flight, one of the passengers suddenly died, and the crew decided to divert into Portugal. I read in newspapers that the passengers weren't allowed to disembark from the airplane until a doctor had examined the dead person. There was a nurse on board who gave the person CPR, but unfortunately it didn't help. I wonder how you would take care of a situation like this. Do Acme and Acme Red have any routines if something like this would happen on one of your flights? Best regards, Andreas the Third from Sweden." I think we have several Andreases from Sweden that listen to the show.
I like that. That's very noble sounding. Andreas the
Yes,
Third.
Andreas the Third.
Long lineage of the Grand Andreases of Sweden. So.
Andreas and son.
Son.
Okay, so I looked quickly in our operating manual at Acme, and we do have an item in there basically called apparent death of customer. So apparently, I guess you can't take it for granted, but you look at the death of a customer, and of course you have to have somebody make sure and verify that this person is actually deceased. And some of the bullet points are personnel are not qualified to officially declare the condition of a customer's health, so that's why you have to have a doctor or somebody that has the credentials to do so. Steph probably knows a little bit about that. I guess you can be fooled and think somebody's dead when they're really not dead. I'm not dead yet.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're, you can, sometimes it can be hard to find a pulse, so someone can have a weak pulse. Sometimes, unless you're really trained, it can be sometimes difficult to detect respiration. You'd think it'd be easy enough to tell if someone's breathing or not, but unless you're trained and know exactly what I'll just say in stressful situations, it can be easy to miss things that are obvious or should be obvious. So, yeah.
Okay. In the event of an apparent death, the customer should be considered unconscious and appropriate first aid continued. Stat MD, that's a service that we contract with for providing medical support for these situations, can advise when resuscitation efforts are futile. This is typically after 30 minutes of CPR, especially if the AED, that stands for
Automated external defibrillator.
Yes, did not advise the rescuer to deliver a shock. Pronouncement of death on board the aircraft can be declared by a licensed physician if this occurs, or if Stat MD has recommended termination of resuscitation efforts, the flight may continue to the destination with the concurrence of dispatch. Crew actions: inform the dispatch arrival station to notify the CDC, which is the Centers for Disease Control in the U.S. The deceased should be covered with a blanket and secured in a seat with a seat belt. Alternate arrangements may be made if they are acceptable to the deceased's traveling companion and the crew. For example, securing the deceased person in a lavatory. It's advisable that as few customers as possible be made aware of the incident. So in other words, don't make an announcement telling everybody, hey, we just had a guy die.
I'll tell you what, though, if you're doing CPR in the aisle of the airplane,
most everybody knows.
Everyone on the plane is going to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, on a little airplane.
On a big airplane, maybe not.
That's true. Maybe not. Yeah,
Particularly if you've got them into a galley area, which can be discreetly curtained off.
That's true.
It says relocate customers if possible. On arrival, do not move the body until local authorities have given permission, and secure the personal property of the deceased and turn it over to the station manager. So, Nick, I would imagine similar kind of policy procedure?
Not quite as detailed. They don't specify how or where we're going to position someone who has deceased, but the same rules apply. We can't declare someone dead, so we just assume they're extremely ill until a doctor has said they died. We, interestingly, most deaths on board, I don't think they've involved a diversion unless it was that they were ill and we were diverting and they died during the diversion. We would probably then continue.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a big form to fill out, the CA1 form. You've got to advise port health when you get on the ground. The doctors come on before anyone moves. And we would normally have got an unwell passenger out of their seat so that the crew can work on them. So that usually involves putting them down by a door or into the galley area. And that's usually where they rest. There was one sad incident not that long ago where a lady was sitting beside her terminally ill husband, and she knew he'd passed away during the flight, and she just didn't say anything. She just let the flight continue, and when they got to the other end and everyone had got off, she said, "Terribly sorry, my husband's died." So, that case, that was dealt with wonderfully by her, and the crew looked after her, of course, as they would do. So, sometimes you get a dramatic event and sometimes you get one that's very quiet. No one even knows about it, not even the crew, until after you've landed.
Yep.
And it wasn't that long ago that Stephanie told us of her experience working on a very ill passenger.
Critically ill person. Yeah. So, and you're right, that was a much smaller aircraft, but it did make a big ruckus, at least at the onset of it, just trying to get everything situated. So I was thinking if there was something going on, it is likely to attract the attention of quite a few people, unless it perhaps starts in the very back of the aircraft or near the galley in the first place, where you can get someone out of the way quickly. So, but yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I do wonder why they decided to divert. I wonder if it has anything to do with like nationality thing, because Las Palmas is probably part of is a Portuguese territory, but they're going to Norway.
Yeah.
No, to Sweden.
Yeah.
I'm wondering.
I'm not sure. And maybe that's just differences in operating procedures.
Yeah,
It could be just their company policy, but we wouldn't normally, as long as you can deal with things reasonably discreetly. We would
I have to wonder
carry
too.
on to destination.
Maybe if the person has or doesn't have traveling companions, maybe that makes a difference. In terms of where especially if it's an international flight and either where they're from or if they don't have anyone traveling with them, does that affect your decision? I don't know. Maybe for some companies it does, and for others it doesn't. But
Perry Heyman in the chat room says, Jeff, does your manual cover what happens if the dearly departed customer is traveling with an emotional support animal? No, they don't go into that much detail.
You have to get the spare emotional support animal out for the emotional support animal to support them emotionally, because
No, I think it would. In this case, I think it would be emotional support animal would be consoled by an emotional support human.
Oh, could be. Yes, I don't know. Pick the right one.
Okay. Good question, though.
Not the
Perry.
captain.
Yeah. He needs to stay in the front, or she needs to stay in the front and fly the airplane. With my emotional support first officer.
that's really what they're for. I knew it.
It is. It's okay, Captain. You're a good person. You can do this.
You're a good pilot.
You're a good pilot.
You're flying the airplane. Yay.
Yeah, we're not really laughing at you.
Let's see. This from Derek. Howdy, guys and gal. I've been listening for well over a year. I tried the cure for APG syndrome, but unfortunately I had to stop treatments as I really needed to leave the bathroom at some point. Yeah, those side effects. He says, boy, those side effects are no joke.
They're not. No, I've tried it myself. They're evil.
Anyway, I have a question in the attached audio file. And let's see. It's a QuickTime file. Hope you can open it. Oh, yeah, we can open it. Let's see. So take it away, Derek.
Hello, APG crew. Derek here from the wilds of Missouri, another APG syndrome sufferer. Had a question about airline captains and first officers. When you get in the cockpit, do you know who you're flying with? And by that I mean, do you know how many hours, how many takeoffs, landings, etc., that the person in the next seat over has when you get there, or is that something that comes out in cockpit conversation later on? Just something I was curious about. Blue skies and tailwinds, and thanks.
Well, Derek, I hope you get over the syndrome at some point. If you discover a cure, please let us know.
I hope he doesn't.
That's true. Yeah.
Syndroming a whale, chap.
It is designed that way on purpose. Oops, I'm not supposed to divulge detail. Sorry.
So, yeah, I guess it depends on the airline. At Acme Airlines, the only time, well, there are a couple different things that may indicate to me that the person with whom I'm flying may not be extremely experienced, at least in the airplane that we're, flying at the time. And it'll have a little note next to the name, less than 300 hours. And again, that's 300 hours in type. And so that is an indication there. And then the other indication for me, especially lately flying with a lot of new people, is if they are still in their probation period, which is, it used to be a year-long thing when I was hired 29 years ago. But now it's like 6 months or 400 hours, whichever occurs first. I believe that's the delineation of the probationary period with the airline. And what that means basically is that in our case, we have a union that represents the pilot group, and there are certain protections that you have when you're represented by a union if you're not on probation. If you're in that probationary period and you do something kind of stupid or you have a bad attitude or whatever, the union cannot protect you basically. So you're kind of hanging it out there. You got to behave and indicate to the company that you are the person they intended to hire, and you're a good person and you're a good pilot, and that's somebody they want to have for a long career with our company. But so that's another indication for me when I sign in for a trip. Immediately, one of the splash screens comes up and says, "Would you please assess this pilot?" And I'm thinking, oh, okay, that means I'm flying with somebody on probation, somebody pretty new. But otherwise, I guess technically you could go into the scheduling database management system or scheduling system and go in and look up the person's name and then find out information about their qualifications. I'm not sure if I can do that or not. If another pilot, I know I can see my own. I don't know. Yeah, and it might be kind of awkward if you asked a person, well, how many hours and landings do you have in this airplane? That might not be taken the right way. Well, what do you mean? You don't think I can fly the airplane? I don't know. I guess maybe you could somehow steer the conversation in a direction where you could find out how new a person was in an airplane, how many hours they had, how many landings and takeoffs, and that kind of thing.
If it's someone you don't know well or you haven't met before, you can always start. I mean, you're just going to have kind of basic conversations like that, you know, and you can certainly go that direction. You know, like, how'd you get into flying? You can ask about background. I don't think that's appropriate to do.
True, but as far as getting granular with the actual hours on a particular type, and
but I mean, you might get a good sense of, you know, how new or inexperienced they might be.
Mm-hmm. How about
the opposite?
How about your company, Nick?
Well, inexperience is not really a problem, or hasn't been, because we've only taken guys with a lot of hours, and usually with the type rating. So, it's really a matter of usually making conversation and finding out how many companies they've worked for previously or which company they came to us from. But, of course, our first few cadets will finally be coming on the line in the next few months. And they're ab initio. So,
oh, boy, we're going to have some great stories.
Well, I've got 599 days to go, so I won't say I'm hoping not to fly with any, but there is a chance I will get away with not having to fly with any. So it hasn't really been a problem. Usually when they've got 3 stripes, they have been qualified on crosswind landings up to the aircraft limit, same as me. They're also qualified acting pilot in command. So if we're flying with a heavy crew and I'm taking my rest, a 3-striper has to be in command of the aircraft while I'm asleep. So anyone with 3 stripes is, absolutely. But the way I look at it is they have got a license to fly the airplane. The company have trained them to fly the airplane. They're just a line first officer. They're a pilot the same as me. So I shouldn't have to pay any particular attention to how many hours they've got or whatever. They have displayed the appropriate level of skill. So that's what I expect from everyone, as they should expect from me. So that's kind of the way I treat it. It's nice to know if the conditions are a little bit iffy, just whether they've done this sort of thing before, if they go to an airfield they haven't been before. So that usually comes out in conversation. But generally speaking, I usually just sit back and relax, or just my usual easygoing, keep an eye on things and keep my fingers crossed.
Just your usual narcolepsy.
Yeah, that's the one.
Well, you guys probably don't get this since I'll say this in the nicest, most respectful way possible. You've clearly been at your job for a while. It's not difficult to see that.
What? How?
Or
I'm offended. That's
actually,
ageism.
That is ageism, and you wouldn't actually know that because you may not have been, right. You could have joined the profession later in life.
Yeah.
But and it may just be a different situation too, because you're not in, face-to-face contact with your passengers or customers like I am in my profession. But probably at least once or twice a day, someone will just blatantly outright ask, how long have you been doing this job? How long, when did you they want to know all these details about how long you've actually been working or doing the procedures that you do, or this.
Yeah, because you're sticking like a big honking needle inside of their bodies.
And I mean, I think it's a valid question. I'm just wondering if it ever happens to pilots as well.
I've been asked by a passenger, nervous passenger wants to see you, Captain. So I wandered back to the galley, and she stood in front of me and said, "Have you been drinking today?"
I love that.
The cabin crew lady, girl who brought her up, her face
just went,
a
"Oh my
picture
God."
of George. I said, "What?"
I didn't know they were going to ask that.
We have pilots at my company who have, when a passenger seriously asks that question, will basically say, "Okay, that's it. We're going to disembark everybody from the airplane, and the co-pilot and I, or whatever, we're going to go and get tested for alcohol." And basically, they cancel the flight. And I think that's a kind of an extreme reaction myself. Wow. Usually when people say something like that, they're trying to be funny.
Yes.
And
No, she was a nervous flyer, and she was deadly serious.
Yeah.
But all I had to say was, "No, of course not, madam. I'm fine."
What?
Would have been an inopportune moment to get the hiccups.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Innocent
Absolutely.
hiccups right at that time.
I love it.
Terrible.
Thomas Mandrake says, "Have I been drinking today? How do you think I got on the plane?"
Reminds me of that sketch.
Very
Yeah.
funny.
Where's my emotional support bottle?
That's right.
Yeah.
Anyway. Good discussion. Thank you, Derek, for the question. Hopefully that answered it, at least for our couple of cases and Steph's as well. Okay. Well, excuse me. Somebody
Hiccups?
deep inside was
Have you
trying to
been
come
drinking?
out. No, I should be, though. Ralph sends us in feedback. In fact, he says, "More feedback. Please explain cloud-based versus ceiling. They appear to be synonymous." And as far as I know, they are. Except that I guess you could make the distinction that when we're talking about a ceiling, we are talking about the bases of clouds, and those clouds that are specifically considered broken to overcast. If it's a scattered cloud layer, then the bases of those clouds would not be considered a ceiling. Right? And Steph probably knows a little bit more of the details about percentages and all that kind of stuff. I can't recall.
I think that would be. I think that's pretty accurate. I don't think there's a lot more to add than that.
So that's usually what? Few, scattered.
Few scattered, broken,
and then
overcast.
Or as I like to say, scattered, smothered, covered, and...
I think that's the Waffle House.
Oh, that's the Waffle House. Okay. Never mind. The hash browns.
Suddenly I'm hungry.
Yeah, me too. And thirsty. Anything else to add about cloud bases versus ceiling?
No, I think you've just about hit the nail on the head there.
All right.
Although I will say with, this is not airline flying specific, but with skydiving, even if it's just scattered clouds, as you're climbing to altitude, we usually try and make note of where the lowest level of cloud layer is, because if you inadvertently end up in one, you want to know when you're going to break out of that. So,
oh, that's good to know.
So even if it's just a few scattered clouds here and there, I usually try and make note of it.
So let's say that happened, Steph. What's like the minimum altitude that you could, safely pull the, well,
so
what we used to call a ripcord, but now something else?
Yeah, there's a little pilot chute that pulls out the deployment bag with the parachute inside.
Sir. Oh, excuse me, sir.
Do you have an answer?
I have. Cloud ceiling, the height of the base of the cloud at the aerodrome, which is, I can't speak now, sufficient to obscure more than half of the sky visible.
There you go.
So if it covers more than 50%, it's a ceiling.
Okay, there you go. That's easy.
Sorry to interrupt.
Some of it depends on how experienced of a skydiver you are. So with different classes of licenses, there are limitations on what altitude you can pull you can deploy your parachute. The lowest is generally about 2,500 feet or thereabouts. So for me
2,500.
personally, I don't like to be lower than 3,500. And that's, yeah, I definitely want to be.
And what is,
deployed
and I know it depends on
feet.
what kind of jump you're doing and everything as far as what altitude you start at. I think we had that discussion not that long ago. But.
Most of them start at 13,500 to 14,000 feet where I am.
Okay.
I would rather open it as late as possible because if I'm going to realize that it's not going to open properly and I'm going to plummet to my death, I'd rather not be hanging around for that length of time.
You
I'd
don't
rather
want to
go.
Don't dwell on it.
give your reserve parachute a reasonable chance to work.
Oh, you got a reserve.
Yeah,
You got
absolutely.
embrace it. Wow.
Absolutely.
And if your reserve doesn't work,
Well, then that's not a great thing.
yeah. So let's do that.
That's
bit
a
at
that's a
low
very
level.
very improbable situation, fortunately. So
Good.
It just isn't your day.
yeah,
apparently.
that was something else was going to get you that day too. If it wasn't that, that's just your time was
What the rattlesnake you land on?
exactly.
Hey, you rats. I mean, he's asking a question about rats. Ram Air turbines. Which models have them? Only wide body or are they optional?
An
Would
optional
they-
extra. I think I'll pay for a rat on this airplane.
Would they be installed in biz jets and turboprops? I honestly don't know the answer to this, and I think the only airplane that I've flown that had, well, maybe the 141 had a rat. I don't remember.
I got a rat.
Yeah,
Have
probably
you not
did.
got a rat?
Not in any of the jets that I've flown
Oh.
recently. I don't think any narrow body I've flown has a Ram Air turbine.
I've got a rat on mine.
Well, yeah, it's a big jumbo jet. Wonder if the narrow body Airbuses have them. I bet they do. I think they do, actually.
I'm pretty sure they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to this question.
Yeah, I don't either. Maybe
They're
somebody
in the back
can.
of one of the flap track fairings.
Okay. And it pops out into the.
Yeah, and it's a hydraulic pump.
Okay. And I would imagine.
Powers the green system, and where there is also an electric hydraulic pump. So if you lose your electrics, you can use the rat to power the green system to power the electrics. It's all
So
very
you get
clever.
both hydraulic and electrical
From the
capability.
rat. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. ATIS, or I say ATIS, is the letter reset to alpha at a particular time, like midnight UTC, or does the entire alphabet get used in a loop ad infinitum? Any unused letters? So at big airports, they have arrival ATIS information and departure ATIS information. I'm not sure if this is the same
ATIS, for those who don't know, is the automatic terminal information service.
Mm-hmm. And that's basically the old-fashioned way, and we still do that in some places that don't have digital automatic terminal.
Plenty of medium, smaller size airports with control towers have recorded, by an actual person ATIS.
Mm-hmm. And then some have ASOS and AWAS and
Those
all
are
that kind
more
of stuff, automated things.
Yeah.
But yeah, it gives us, as Steph said, the information. At least those two that we just mentioned were just the actual weather conditions, and it's an automated system that can determine what the ceiling is and what the wind direction and velocity is, and temperature and dew point. And then an ATIS broadcast has all that information in. Also, will tell you what runways they're operating on as far as landing and taking off, etc., and other notes that you might want, taxiway closures and information
Relevant.
relevant information to the pilots. And then if at a big airport like Charlotte and the New York airports and Atlanta and Chicago, all the big places, they have separate arrival and departure ATIS information. And I can't remember. I think it's the arrival information goes from A to M, so Alpha through Mike, and then the departure information starts at Papa, or no, O. Yeah, October, and goes to Zulu, and then they start back over to, October or Oscar, I guess.
And that actually happens at smaller airports that don't have separate arrival departure ATIS, but two airports that might be in close proximity to one another. So like Winston-Salem and Greensboro will do the same thing. They separate their ATIS numbers.
They split the alphabet in half. Okay. And as far as timing is concerned, routinely it's usually around 50 to 55 after each hour where they put out a new identifier, a new information, and then sometimes even more if conditions are changing more rapidly, the weather's changing more rapidly, or something like a taxiway or runway closure occurs, then they'll issue more than one every hour. But typically it's one every hour, and it usually is issued around 50 to 55 ish, I think.
That's usually when they update it, so it should be ready for the top of the hour, basically.
Yeah.
So does it start the day with alpha?
I guess
don't know.
It depends on the airport. So if you have an airport that's issuing them, basically around the clock every, would they need to start over? Or if you have an airport that has a control tower that's only open for certain hours, I would imagine that probably they'd start the day with alpha, but I don't actually know the answer to that part of it.
That seems logical. But the big airports, they're 24/7.
It's 24/7, so why wouldn't you just keep going?
Yeah, you just
around
go.
the letters that you're allocated.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Otherwise, you wouldn't know if you had the up-to-date one, because if it went from Charlie, say at just before midnight, and then started to alpha again, you go, hell, I missed a whole alphabet.
Yeah, because it's not infrequent that you'll get the information and then it'll be a little bit early and it will update before you're actually landing or departing or whatever the case may be. So
I actually sent a funny message to Mr. Spink, Adam Spink, who's our lovely listener who works at Heathrow Air Traffic, with photographs of about 9 ATISes that had been issued on one approach that I made into Heathrow. And I said, look, mate, every time you pump one of these out, I've got to actually take my eyes off what the other bloke's doing and read it to see if there's anything vital on it. So do you have to push out like 10 every 30 minutes? They're dreadful. They can go through an entire alphabet in about an hour and a half.
What was his answer?
He sort of was non-committal. He said, oh, well, that's the way it works. So I'm going, great.
Yeah, well, that's
I'm sure it's a liability thing for them. If something significant has changed, they have to put it out.
Well, I was reading them all, and I actually couldn't see much that had changed. So I think the sensitivity of your automatic issuing system is a little bit up the creek. But
they knew that you were arriving, and they just wanted to test your ability to.
I just wanted to keep me occupied or something. Stop me from falling asleep. That was it.
I mean, how many times do you see this? And I assume often when they go, okay, you check in with Charlie and they go, okay, well, information Delta is current. Let us know when you have Delta. So you look at it and you go, it's exactly the same temperature, the same wind. Everything is exactly the same. Why? And sometimes the cool controllers, if you're a controller and you're listening to the show, will say, well, information Delta is current, but it's pretty much the same as the other one. They probably can't do that, but I don't know.
That's a new question to ask that new podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
New podcast out there called something Opposing Bases. And we're not sure what that means, but I'm sure there's a reason behind that name. But it's 2 air traffic controllers who are also pilots. And a lot of air traffic controllers are pilots, turns out. At least ones that listen to the show. And
not only pilots are air traffic controllers.
True. Very true. Hey, Ralph, normally we try to send in feedback with only like 1 or 2 questions because this is a lot of questions.
We're almost done. We're almost done.
Yeah.
I can answer mine quickly.
Okay, question number 4, Nick. Green lights to your gate.
Yeah, at Heathrow, we get told to follow the greens at night, and they're sequenced so that you just follow the center line green lights, and it guides you all the way to your parking position. You don't have to be given a whole list of taxiways to taxi around. And I've been up to Heathrow Tower and chatted. Adam gave me a lovely wander around there and chatted to him and looked at the big touch-sensitive TV screen that's up there. and they literally have, they tap what they want to illuminate. Replace the old one, which was just a mechanical switching one. But it's a very good system, and I wish every airport had it because, if the weather's bad, the visibility is poor, following the greens is a great way to go. And at night, when you're a bit tired and you can't see the signs properly, it just stops you making any mistakes. And there's lovely big red stop bars that come up when they need you to come to a halt. So it's a great system.
Excellent. Here's one for Miami Rick. Ralph. Ralph, you must be like really far behind or something. Yeah. Rick, where are you? Is he over there, Steph? At your place?
He's not here.
Oh, well, he's not here either. So we're going to skip that one.
We'll hold it. We'll put it in his. Oh wait, are we keeping feedback for Rick anymore?
I don't think so. Let's see. When you divert to an alternate caused by a delay at the original, for example, do you need to file a completely new flight plan? And do you top off with just enough fuel to get to your original destination, or do you load enough for the next leg also? I think in general, typically you'll just load enough fuel to get you to your original destination, plus the required reserves and alternate fuel, which is likely that you'll need as well, just in case you can't get in the second time. But as far as putting extra fuel on for the next leg, I don't think that happens very often unless the fuel at that diversion airport is really, really cheap and they can get away with adding that extra weight and carrying that extra fuel. What do you say, Nick?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, you need a new flight plan because you're doing a completely different flight.
Yeah.
And we just put enough on to get us to where we want to go. But making sure that, particularly if we diverted for weather, that we've got enough to get us there and hold for a suitable length of time and make quite a few approaches, because you don't want to divert for weather twice. You're really going to upset your passengers.
Yeah. Not a good thing. APU. How small of an aircraft use APUs? What about turboprops? I don't know. Maybe the bigger turboprops, maybe like the bigger King Airs have APUs. I don't know for sure though.
I don't know. I don't know what the smallest aircraft that has an APU is.
Don't know. Maybe
my little Hawk trainer, which was tiny. Now, it didn't exactly have an APU. We didn't run it to power stuff, but it had the equivalent of, because that's what we used to start the engine. So, yeah.
I thought you were going to tell me that the engines were actually closer to APUs than jet engines.
No, it was actually powered by two APUs.
It had an Ardeur, Rolls-Royce Ardeur, the same engine that was in the Jaguar.
Oh.
The Jaguar wasn't overpowered, but when you stuck one of those in a little Hawk, it was pretty good.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, it was.
He says, finally, the shows are getting better every week. Thank you. And I love the tales from Captain Nick. Hey, he likes your tales.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got a furry one today.
Yeah. He should work for the BBC after Acme Red puts him out to pasture. How about audiobooks? Yeah.
I was going to say after the APG puts him out to pasture.
Not long to go.
Yeah, I think he'd make a good BBC commentator. All right. How long have we been going here? About an hour and a half?
About an hour and 40 minutes.
Okay.
Hour, yeah.
Let's keep on going. Ross in England. Oh, we heard from Ross earlier. We have this one, though, he sent in more recently, January 9th. Hi, Team APG. A question for you on sim training. How is air traffic control simulated? Does the sim training have ATC that covers all roles, like the tower, calling for pushbacks, etc.? Please excuse my lack of knowledge on the different ATC roles. Maybe you can enlighten me here too. Okay. So unlike the PC simulation world, where I guess they have services like VATSIM and some others, where people who are actual controllers or what would you call serious amateur air traffic controllers?
ATCs.
Yeah. They actually provide ATC services for people that are doing flights using their flying software on their PC
like
simulator
home
stuff.
simulators.
Yeah. which I didn't know that until I started doing the show, and we had some feedback from somebody, and it had a link to YouTube with this VATSIM thing, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I had no idea that existed. Well, unlike that, the simulators that I've had experience with, when I go every 9 months now, the simulator instructor is making those kind of calls. So he's like he's ground control, he's tower, he's center, he is the lead flight attendant, he is the guy that's driving the tug and pushing back the airplane. He's everything, or she is everything, and sometimes you have them that do a really good job and really make it feel like you're hearing ATC in the background, and others are just like whatever the minimum is to kind of indicate to us what it is we're supposed to be doing, like, you're clear for takeoff and that kind of thing. My recent sim recurrent training, we were flying into Jacksonville in the simulator, and we kept getting closer and closer, and I could hear he was just doing all kinds of chatter on the radio about some guy in one of the airport vehicles on the aerodrome, and where are you? I don't know where you are, and I'm thinking the whole time, oh, I know where this is gonna lead. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna lead to You can always go around. But it was really good. He was really good at it, and
was he doing like different voices for different? Yeah.
And he was doing it at a lower volume too, not his normal volume. So it was like stuff going on in the background.
Static, like.
Yeah. And I was kind of smiling the whole time too, thinking this is kind of cool, because at least he's not going to spring it on me like 100 feet. It was like one of those things where like 100 feet from touchdown, he goes, so and so number, go around. I was already rehearsing that in my mind several times before he did that, but I thought it was kind of cute. So that's what happens in my world. What about yours, Captain Nick?
We have some guys who are brilliant at putting on all sorts of different accents, and they can be very funny. Actually, some of them, they're great, and others are completely useless.
Yeah,
so
same thing.
A bit of a variable feast, I'm afraid. I mean, it's lovely to be completely immersed in a world that you are believing is real, because it actually makes it a lot easier to fly the sim if you start thinking it's a real airplane. And that bubble is often burst by the trainer, who, one, has probably fallen asleep in the seat because it's an 0400 start, and two, is very boring about playing the different roles. So that brings you back to reality, and you go, I'm just in the sim. But the guys that can do it well can sometimes make the whole thing come absolutely alive.
Yes.
When I've had, especially during instrument training, the instructor I had was very good at playing air traffic control. I think sometimes he was better at setting you up for a good approach than when we were actually being guided by ATC, like vectored for, the specific approach. He'd do a better job with the vectors. So I just found that interesting.
Did you do simulator training too?
No.
Okay.
But, if we were in uncontrolled air or Class E airspace, but we were still, doing practice approaches, he would basically take the role of air traffic controller. So if you were doing it set up,
that's cool.
With vector, he did a good job. So.
Excellent. Well, thanks to Ross in England for your question. And there's something else here. As far as the different ATC roles, this could be a long discussion, but it used to be when the first radio call that we would make, and in several places this still is the case, if they don't have a digital system where you can get a lot of this information like clearances and that kind of thing through your ACARS box, you would call, if you're on an instrument flight plan, you would call clearance delivery, and you talk with a person, and sometimes this person may actually be the person running ground control, and sometimes even not only running ground control and clearance, but also tower. And then sometimes on the ATIS itself, it'll say, contact for your clearance, contact ground control, because I'm the same person that you're going to talk to on clearance delivery, and that helps them not have to listen to 2 or 3 separate radio frequencies. But let's say a busy airport, that's still using clearance delivery, you're gonna talk to them, and then ground control. Actually, you might actually talk to your company's ramp control or another company's ramp control to get out to a point where ground control takes over, and then they kind of direct you from that point to the end or close to the end of the runway, where you'll talk to the control tower folks, and then control. Now, there's some differences whether you're in the U.S., Canada, and Europe as far as whether you would switch to the departure control before you are off the ground, or shortly after you are airborne, then switched over to departure control, which is also approach control, but since you're departing, we call them departure. And then once you get into the higher altitudes, a little bit further away from the airport environment, then you basically, most places it's somewhere around 10 to 18,000 feet, I guess, that transition between the low altitude approach control structure to the or departure control structure to the en route structure, which is what we call center, air route traffic control center. At least that's what we call them here in the U.S. And center is kind of further divided into sectors and to different altitudes, like a high altitude sector and a low altitude sector.
There's a lot of different for the same sector. If you're with or it's not sector or center, if you're with the same center, you can go through several different frequencies with the same center, several different controllers, just as you progress through different parts of it. So it's not always the same.
Did I miss any stuff? Any other?
I think you covered.
Yeah, and
it kind of works the same way back and reverse again when you reach your destination.
Except for you don't have to talk to the clearance delivery person at that point. Yeah, but everything, as she said, all the way ground control, tower, ground control, and then if you're you're an air carrier and you're at a big airport like Charlotte or Atlanta, then you talk to the ramp control, and they control that specific area for gates and stuff. So constantly talking to people.
Yep.
In our world. Okay. Tarek sent us some audio feedback.
Hello, APG crew and APG listeners. Tarek Merryface here. And sending in this feedback because of something that randomly happened. You guys, several episodes back, made a joke about filling up a Mad Dog with a teaspoon. You moved on, but I did not. I decided to calculate it. Because why not? So I calculated how long it would take to fill up an MD-88 and an A340 with teaspoons. So the assumptions I made were that it's 4.4 milliliter for a teaspoon.
It would take a long time. That's the short answer.
Teaspoon. And that it takes 3 seconds per teaspoon. And using some very quick and thus very accurate and not at all unreliable internet research, I found out that the Mad Dog has 5,836 US gallons. With those calculations, I discovered it would take you 174 days, 9 hours, 2 minutes, and 16 seconds to fill up the Mad Dog with a teaspoon. Assuming, of course, that none of the fuel evaporates and, the airplane doesn't fly for the half a year. But yeah, let's talk about more tangible figures for us APG crew and APG syndrome sufferers. That is 1,756 episodes of APG. Now, this number was done by taking an average of all the current episodes. So I split the episodes into chunks of 50 and then took an average of those and took a total average and did a few statistical things. And the average podcast is roughly 2 hours and 23 minutes long. So that's that. For the A340, I used an FAA certification sheet that just happens to be online. I don't know why, but it's there. And the A340 apparently has 36,750 US gallons. Using the same teaspoon, which by now would be maybe not in the best shape, and 3 seconds per teaspoon worth of fuel, I found out it would take only 1,096 days, 18 hours, and 12 minutes exactly to fill up an A340. In terms of APG sufferers, speaking our language, that is 11,044 episodes, 0.27. So about another quarter of an episode. That's another half hour of episodes, roughly. So that's that. Yeah, that was really random. maybe I've got a little bit too much time in my hands. But I thought I'd do that calculation because why not? Captain Jeff, you still have quite a long time to go before someone can go fill out an A340 using a teaspoon. So get cracking. Love the show. Take care, guys. Bye.
Wow. If Dana were here, wow.
How useful. Thank you.
I'm just a bit worried that Tarek didn't include the variables of specific gravity against the temperature.
I mean, this
of
was
the
just
fuel.
a rough estimate.
He was going down to the very second.
I know.
So
a cocktail napkin calculation.
So can you please try that again with, say, a random series of specific gravities, say 0.77 up to 0.82, and give us an idea of how that might change, please?
No. Disregard that
I'm not
last
sure. I'm not
question.
sure why you're so worried about it, Nick. You'll be well retired by the time your A340 actually gets filled up with fuel.
Yeah, that's
regardless
the
of
airplane
specific
I need to
gravity.
get on my next trip. You're quite right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I can just sit at home and
It's
say,
like, what,
"Give me a
1,000
ring when it's full."
So more than 11,000 episodes of our show, if we did a one show or 52 shows a year, well, that's a long time.
It's a long time.
Very, very long time.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Well, that was interesting, Tarek. It's funny, too.
Love it.
You're clever. Good thing we don't have to fill up our jets with teaspoons.
Yeah.
All right. Jonathan writes, this feedback has been a long time coming. 7 months at least. And in some ways, you could say 9 months. But more about that in a minute. I've been listening to the podcast for almost 2 years now, and I think it's terrific. I'm not an aviator, more of an aviation fan, and a frequent traveler, flying between 60,000 and 80,000 miles a year. That's a lot. Most of them on Acme. My passion for aviation dates back to my younger years when my dad, also an Acme frequent flyer, would challenge my brother and I to look up at a plane in the sky and figure out the type and airline. Ever since, I've loved to be up in the air on a commercial jet. Well, this past summer, I was in the midst of a rough time at work that saw me away from home for the better part of 2 weeks, leaving my wife home alone with our toddler and almost 3 months pregnant to boot. I was flying back home to Minneapolis in early June when I got a text from my wife while my flight was somewhere over southern Ontario. She'd walked outside to water our flowers and fallen down the concrete steps. Of course, I immediately imagined the worst. Pregnant, fall, concrete steps, disaster. We texted back and forth, and I ascertained that she was in a lot of pain and couldn't put any weight on either of her legs. We quickly strategized that a neighbor would come and watch our son while she went by ambulance to the emergency room. Unfortunately, I was still trapped in a tin can hurtling toward Minneapolis, but completely powerless to do anything more. Knowing from the show that sometimes pilots can get more expeditious routing from ATC, better runway assignments, or even better gates, I decided the only way I could exert even a tiny bit of control over my situation was by alerting the cabin crew to my predicament. The Acme flight attendants were compassionate and relayed my situation to the pilot. I habitually follow my flights on FlightAware, and I soon saw that our routing had indeed shifted to what I would consider a more direct routing, and a little later our flight's gate shifted from G20 to G3. Anyone who's flown into Minneapolis-St. Paul knows that when it comes to getting to a cab, G3 is way faster than G20. We landed onto runway 30 left. The pilot stomped on the brakes, allowing us to make an immediate turnoff off the runway right near our gate, minimizing taxi time. As we approached the gate, the flight attendants made an announcement about a passenger's family emergency and to please remain seated to allow that passenger to deplane. The passengers complied, and I was at the gate before the door was even open. I guess he means the front door before it was open. The flight attendants all offered hugs and wished me luck, and I was soon out the door and running through the terminal to a cab. I got to the ER in time for the doctor to come in and tell my wife that our baby was fine, but she'd broken bones in both of her legs. It would be a painful recovery, but there was likely no permanent damage. I was relieved and thankful that the Acme crew allowed me to be there at my wife's side when she found out the verdict. Fast forward to a few days ago, and my wife gave birth to a healthy baby girl. To be honest, I've thought about writing this feedback ever since the incident happened, But something inside me wanted to wait until I got to hold my baby in my arms and see that all really was okay. I'm hoping this feedback will eventually find its way to the pilots and flight attendants who helped me get to the hospital just a little bit faster. I think of them often when I hold my beautiful little girl. Best wishes for clear skies and unlimited visibility. Jonathan in Minneapolis. And he says, P.S. I'm flying Dulles to Heathrow in April on Acme Red. Any chance I'll get Captain Nick at the controls? I don't know.
Probably not. Don't seem to go there very often, I'm afraid. No, doesn't appear very often on my roster anyway. I don't know who gets those flights, but probably not. I'm sorry to say.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, just glad to hear that everything turned out okay with your wife and your baby girl, and everyone's happy and healthy now. But gosh, that's scary and frustrating and a lot of emotions all at the same time when, there's nothing you can do about it at that moment. And I'm glad that crew was able to at least expedite that process a little bit faster for you. So,
yes, bravo to the crew for being compassionate and doing the little that they could to help the situation. And so pleased that you have a nice, healthy baby and a healthy wife.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
We like pictures of babies.
Yeah, send a picture.
We won't share.
I'm wondering if you did.
I don't want to see a picture of a baby. They all look the same.
Well, ignore the curmudgeon and
yeah.
All pink squiggly things. Bleh.
Secretly he loves little babies.
He does.
Little squiggly things.
We know the truth.
Yeah. Okay, well, guess what? It's time for this week's installment of Plain Tales. So take it away, curmudgeon. No, old pilot.
The Old Pilot's Plain Tales. Flowers on the Waves.
McDonnell Douglas needed to update their DC-10 with something larger. They couldn't afford the cost of a completely new design, so developed a new derivative of the DC-10 designated the MD-11. The initial order book looked promising, but before long the three-engined aircraft had to compete with the Airbus A330, A340 and Boeing's 777 and 767. Although the aircraft failed to meet its projected range capability, it was purchased by a number of airlines such as American, Delta, World Airways, JAL, KLM, Varig and China Eastern. Swissair was also a major customer, purchasing a fleet of 20. It was one of these aircraft, Hotel Bravo India Whiskey Foxtrot, that was operating a night flight out of New York's JFK Airport on the 2nd of September 1998, bound for Geneva in Switzerland with the flight number Swissair 111. For most of its life, Swissair was one of the major international airlines, and because of its financial stability, was known as the Flying Bank. However, particularly after deregulation, it attempted to both merge and expand further into the European market. However, after acquiring stakes in some rather unsuccessful airlines, it began to lose significant amounts of money. 9/11 would eventually herald the demise of Swissair, but in the period up to that point, it was trying to compete by modernizing its aircraft. One of those projects was to introduce a third-party entertainment and gambling system into its MD-11 aircraft, and it invested around $75 million with an almost unknown Las Vegas-based company who installed an in-flight entertainment network on all of the airline's long-haul jets. Analysts have questioned why such a reputable airline should have associated themselves with an unproven system from a small and relatively unknown company, but an answer has never been forthcoming. Other major airlines chose systems from better-known manufacturers such as GEC Marconi and Hughes Avicom. On the night in question, at 18 minutes past 8 in the evening, Swiss Air 111 departed JFK for a routine flight back to Geneva. The MD-11 had 215 passengers on board, with 2 pilots and cabin crew numbering 12. The captain was an experienced and well-respected man, having nearly 10,000 hours of experience, ranging from his time flying fighters with the Swiss Air Force to DC-9s, MD-80s, A320s, and then the MD-11. As well as being a line pilot, he worked as a training captain, instructing other pilots both in the air and in the simulator. He was known to work with exactness and precision, as well as being someone capable of creating a friendly and professional atmosphere in the cockpit. His first officer was also an ex-Swiss Air Force pilot who had flown the MD-80 and A320 before moving to the MD-11. Despite only having 2,700 hours with Swiss Air, he was also an instructor pilot. The aircraft they were in that night was modern and well equipped. It had a fully glass cockpit with only a few basic instruments such as the standby flying instruments. The passengers in the first class and business cabins also enjoyed the use of seatback TV screens. The entertainment system needed to draw 4.4 kilovolt amperes of 115 volt AC power. The aim was to power this system from the electrical buses that powered all the cabin services, but it was discovered that the power available would be insufficient. Therefore, an additional bus, the 115 volt AC bus number 2, was used to satisfy the power needs of this hungry system. However, whilst there was an easy way to isolate the cabin services from the electrical system by turning the cabin bus off, there was no way to cut power to the entertainment system from the number 2 bus. As such, the fitting of this system would not have been approved by the FAA, and there were no instructions on how to deactivate the feed from bus number 2 in an emergency. Indeed, since the design flaw wasn't discovered until after this flight, the pilots would not have been aware that the entertainment system would stay powered after the cabin bus was deactivated. Swiss Air Flight 111 departed JFK and climbed to the northeast, following the armada of other transatlantic traffic heading for the North Atlantic Track System entry points around Newfoundland. The aircraft had reached its initial cruising level, and apart from a short period where they lost contact with air traffic, probably by selecting the wrong frequency, all had gone smoothly. In the cabin, the passengers would have been sitting back and getting ready for their meal service. In first class and business, the entertainment system had been turned on, and I guess most of the passengers there were busy on their touch screens selecting movies to watch before settling down to get some sleep. Unbeknown to them, it is suspected that the wiring, feeding power to provide them with amusement, had a crack in its covering and was arcing through the broken insulation in the ceiling near the back of the cockpit. On the flight deck, the captain and his first officer would have been getting on with their usual duties, putting in their transatlantic routing request, getting weathers, and checking the aircraft systems. After leaving the New York area, they would have been handed off to Boston, who would guide them further north until they entered the first of the Canadian control areas, Moncton. They had been airborne for just an hour and 52 minutes when the pilots first noticed a smell of burning on the flight deck, followed about 20 seconds later by a little smoke. From that moment on, things were going to happen frighteningly fast, but, of course, they had no idea just how quickly the situation would escalate. And anyway, very soon the initial smoke disappeared. There is very little a pilot can do to establish the source of a burning smell or smoke unless it's clearly coming out of a specific piece of equipment. And it's not realistic to try to establish the origin just by the smell. About 2 minutes later, the smoke reappeared and seemed to be coming from the area of the air vents in the ceiling at the back of the cockpit. There were a few possible sources of the fire. It could be coming from electrical equipment, from burning material, or from the air conditioning system. Since the smoke was coming from around the right overhead air diffuser, it's probable that they considered one of the air packs to be at fault. The usual drill would be to turn off each air conditioning pack in turn to see if the smoke dissipated, bearing in mind it can take several minutes to blow residual smoke through the air ducts before it becomes obvious which pack is at fault. None of the actions for a smoke drill can be done quickly, and even if the source of ignition is removed, it might be too late. A fire might be burning hidden within the airframe. However, it took some 13 minutes for the smoke to become serious enough to prompt them to begin this drill. Tests after the event suggested that arcing would probably have produced a small flame in the layer of MPET, that's metallized polyethylene terephthalate, blankets of insulation material that lay between the skin and the inner surface of the cabin. The pilot certainly isolated the power to the cabin services by turning off the cabin bus, but as we know, that would not have cut all the power to the entertainment system. 3 minutes after the first sign of smoke, the captain advised Moncton that they had a problem. They declared a pan, stating that they had smoke in the cockpit and they needed an immediate return to a convenient place, such as Boston. They were cleared to descend, and the controller suggested that they might want to go to Halifax instead, as it was considerably closer. After donning their oxygen masks, a device that makes communication difficult and every task twice as hard, they agreed that Halifax would be better, and a British Airways Speedbird came back to them with the Halifax weather. At this point, the amount of smoke would still have been small, since there wasn't an easy path for the smoke to pass from the location of the growing fire into the flight deck. However, in the 5 minutes before they donned their oxygen masks, both pilots may well have been affected by the noxious and potentially toxic combustion byproducts of the burning insulation. The captain had the following factors to consider. He had assessed that they were faced with air conditioning smoke, which did not require an emergency descent, just an expedited one. Both pilots were unfamiliar with Halifax. They didn't have the approach charts readily available, and the back course ILS, being an unusual approach, wasn't pre-programmed into their flight management system. They would need time to familiarize themselves with the approach and then set it up. In the cabin there was no sign of smoke, and a meal service was underway, which was going to take some time to pack away to secure the cabin for a safe landing. He also knew that they were above the maximum normal landing weight, and although they were permitted to land overweight, it still posed some risks. As a result, without some clue that there was an unseen fire growing in the ceiling behind him, it is quite reasonable that he should consider dumping fuel. Of course, had he known the seriousness of the situation that was developing, he undoubtedly would have assessed the circumstances differently. In the area above the fuselage ceiling, known as the attic, the space was filling with hot combustion byproducts from burning insulation, and the heat burned off the cap from an air conditioning duct which fanned the flames and created a more intense fire. The fire moved forwards, and as fasteners melted and failed, more layers of the insulation material came loose and ignited. By now, Moncton had positioned Swissair 111 at 8,000 feet and not far from the airfield in a good position to dump fuel. The calls from the aircraft were spotted with errors, and requests for information had to be repeated. It's fairly obvious that the pressure of getting everything done in time, plus handling the growing emergency, was sapping the capacity of the pilots. About 11 minutes after first smelling smoke, the pilots got to the point in their checklist where they were required to turn off the cabin bus, which they did. They had no idea what that action was going to unleash on them. With the cabin bus off, the cabin airflow fans, which, up to that point, had kept the fire away from most of the cockpit, stopped, and the airflow reversed. The fire and heat were drawn forward into the cockpit attic area and then down through the cockpit and into the avionics compartment below. The environment on the flight deck would have deteriorated rapidly, which was confirmed by the multitude of failures that subsequently occurred. Numerous master warnings blared with increasing numbers of system faults. The autopilot failed, navigation instruments and the radio failed. Messages, cues and alerts would have appeared all within an environment that was becoming burning hot, over 600 degrees centigrade in places, and filled with dense and toxic smoke. The first officer who was flying the aircraft lost all his displays and had to fly from the small standby instruments. The cockpit lighting failed. An engine fire warning illuminated, and they shut that engine down. Almost thankfully, the last 5 minutes of flight are not recorded, as power to the voice and data recorders also failed. What we do know is that the captain had tried to open his sliding window and had finally left his seat to use his quick reference handbook to try to stop flames that were entering the cockpit, as it was found welded into the cockpit wall. Molten aluminium had come down from the cockpit ceiling. The aircraft struck the waters of Peggy's Cove, nose down, with over 90 degrees of bank at more than 300 knots, and with a force of around 350 G, causing it to completely disintegrate. The impact shook buildings, and the sound echoed around the cove. Local fishermen took to the freezing waters in their boats. They had never seen anything like it. Hundreds of bodies, or what was left of them, littered the ocean. A fisherman saw a human heart float on the water. Wallets emptied by the force of the explosion, hundreds of shoes, clothes, broken suitcases, eyeglasses, children's toys. The remnants of Swissair 111 lay floating on the surface of the water. Everything had to be scooped up in nets. Debris and seawater filled the body bags, but not one single intact body. None of the 229 souls on board survived. What is also known is that even had the captain tried to land as soon as he declared an emergency and decided to divert to Halifax, there would have been insufficient time to get down before the fire took hold of the cockpit. In a heroic effort, an estimated 2 million pieces of debris were recovered and reassembled as part of the investigation. It was a mammoth task to rebuild the aircraft and establish what had occurred. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada made 9 recommendations relating to changes in aircraft material, electrical systems, and data recorders, but one issue not addressed was the improper installation of the flight entertainment system by unqualified third parties. The captain's wife has returned with her children 3 times to the site of the crash in beautiful Peggy's Cove. She scattered her husband's ashes there and threw flowers on the waves. Lighthouses, she said, are tombstones for me now. Of her husband, she quietly remarked on one visit, "He's chosen a very nice place for his grave. It was just too early."
Music by bensounds.com.
Wow, powerful. Another beautiful job on a tragic episode.
Thanks, Jeff. This one, I have to say, really got to me.
Oh, hang on. I'm sorry. I had you muted.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that this one really got to me because,
I can see why.
I think we can imagine ourselves in that situation, desperately trying to do what is right with so little time and in such appalling conditions, trying to save our own lives as well as the hundreds of passengers behind us. And it just breaks my heart to think of what they had to go through.
Yeah. And without any, I mean, they really didn't have a chance in that situation. There was nothing that they could have done differently there. So
no, there was a lot of
it was stuff that was happening out of their hands before, you know, it's those series of events that
when the first reports came out, a lot of questions were asked that did they really have time to dump fuel, and was that the right decision? Well, perhaps not. But the fact is it wouldn't have made any difference, and the chances are that the aircraft would have been much closer to large areas of civilization.
populated areas. Exactly.
And it could well have come down in the city of Halifax. So as it turned out, that was the best option. Other people have thought, well, could he have ditched the airplane? Would that have worked? But I think things deteriorated on the flight deck so quickly because like the first 10 minutes, the whole thing was just over 20 minutes start to finish.
Yeah.
And the first 10 minutes, it was very benign. It
Right.
was only in those last few minutes did things escalate. And by that time, trying to make all those decisions, get everything sorted, work out what was happening before things became impossible to control, it was just a nightmare.
But then, like you said, you said in the Plain Tales, they don't have the last 5 minutes recorded, so you don't even really know what the conditions were at that point. But certainly not conditions for flying an aircraft. So
no, they can only go by. They can work out what temperatures were in the cockpit because they've recovered the pieces and worked out that certain delaminations occur at certain temperatures, so it must have been at least that hot. So the temperature in the cockpit was unlivable by the time the aircraft hit the water. It must have been something of a relief. The first officer was alive when they hit the water. The captain's condition, they don't know. He might well have become unconscious trying to fight the fire in the back of the cockpit, but it's real tough one, real tough story.
So you said something about the fact that when they depowered the cabin bus, that's really when everything accelerated because of the airflow.
That was something that the only the TSB discovered because the airflow, the behavior of the airflow in this condition was such that in that attic area where a lot of this hot air and fumes was collecting, it was being moved towards the aft of the aircraft, at least away from the flight deck. Once they turned the fans off, that airflow reversed. It adopted a more normal route. That's when it drew that hot air in over the cockpit and then down through the cockpit into the avionics bay. And that's when everything deteriorated extremely rapidly. Now, I know it's always in hindsight. We hear these stories, and I know you and I, Jeff, would never treat smoke in the cockpit, cargo fires, with anything other than extreme seriousness, because we have remembered and learned about accidents that have occurred where people have allowed situations to develop fast or develop too long. So both of us, I think, would react very quickly if we have some of these warnings. But tell the truth, I've had smoke in the cabin and thought to myself, God, I don't want this. Where can I go? I'm like 500 miles from a Callaway. That's my closest diversion. What do you do? As it turns out, it was air. It was smoke in the air outside the aircraft from a huge forest fire in northern Canada that was causing it to be smelt and seen in the cabin. So it actually wasn't any danger to the aircraft at all. It was just being drawn in from outside. So, a diversion wasn't necessary. But, geez, it gave me the collywobbles at the time.
Got your adrenaline flowing a little bit there. Heart rate.
Absolutely, yeah. And it was like only 5 minutes before Canada had piped up and said, "Oh, you guys just be aware there's some smoke in the area you've been through from forest fires." And I went, okay, now that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank the Lord for that, because we could smell eventually that it was like wood smoke. So I went, okay, yeah, that's fine.
But I mean, even in ideal conditions, say you just left from an airport and have some place to return to, fire is something that can spread so quickly that you still may not have.
Yeah, which
chance.
is kind of why I get very annoyed with
Fires,
passengers who smoke in the aircraft.
Does that seriously?
Boy.
Does that happen regularly?
Oh yeah, it's still quite regularly. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, they're going to try and hide their fag ends, aren't they?
Yeah. So they're going to.
The first place they do is chuck them into the bin in the loo area where it's full of hand towels.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So,
It's just
What was the agency that investigated this one?
It was the Canadian, I think
Transportation Safety Board, TSB.
Yeah, the TSB in Canada.
Did they ever give any indication of why they didn't mention the company that installed the system and those, the points that you made there?
Only because they were unable to establish for sure where the arcing that started the fire came from.
Oh.
So obviously there were regulations broken when this company, which quite quickly I think ceased to trade, had broken the regulations by connecting, unknown to the pilots and unknown to the FAA, connected the power needed to two different buzzes. So it should have just come from the cabin buzz, which is all the non-essential stuff that works the cabin, and we know we can turn that off quite quickly and isolate all that stuff. But they also took a feed from the number 2 engine buzz. So that's the main. Each engine produces power that goes to one buzz, which is just a power distribution point. And the number 2 engine will feed the number 2 buzz. But the pilots didn't know that. And what's more, the only way to isolate power to that would have been turn off the number 2 buzz, which powers a lot of the essential aircraft systems. So they weren't about to do that in a hurry. So yeah, that was a major mistake, if you can call it that. It wasn't documented properly. It was only revealed afterwards when they inspected all the other aircraft to find out how their entertainment systems had been powered that they discovered this.
Wow.
But no, I think if they'd been able to pin it down to a particular wire, then they would have
there would have been a specific recommendation.
They would have had these guys. And I know that there was a case against both that company and the airline, etc. Afterwards, they were offered a out-of-court settlement, which they refused. But I think in the end, the case was defeated in court because they weren't able to prove exactly what had started the fire. I mean, there was a great deal of suspicion. So, but that wasn't enough, I think.
Tragic.
Absolutely. But since then, I believe the regulations for the insulation material in aircraft have changed. The problem with this rather old-fashioned insulation material was that it was flammable. For heaven's sake, what's that about? I mean, there's no fire extinguishing system in the insulation of an airplane. So why the hell would you build it out of something that is potentially flammable? Don't know that. That's just old-fashioned engineering, I'm afraid.
Yep.
Okay. Well,
let's move on.
Let's move on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, this episode, I'm gonna have to come up with a suitably gloomy title for it too.
Yeah. Might have to. Let's see. FOS, so First Officer S, writes in, and we were having a discussion. Well, I'll just let him say it. Hi, APG crew. I'm writing to give some feedback on the feedback left by Robert regarding the Allegiant gate agent in San Antonio. As a former Allegiant Mad Dog pilot, I think I can provide some insight. Since Allegiant doesn't provide daily service to most of their outstations, they run their ops a little differently at those stations. They will hire ops agents who act as ticket agents, customer service agents, gate agents, and baggage office agents simultaneously. Since Allegiant rarely handles more than one flight at a time, and sometimes no more than a handful of flights in a week at their outstations, they are able to combine these roles. So it's very likely that the agent who checks you in for a flight at the ticket counter is the same agent who scans your boarding pass at the gate when you board the aircraft. It's also very typical to have just 2 to 3 of these ops agents working an entire flight. As far as the San Antonio gate agent relaying to the passengers that she had spoken to the captain of the inbound aircraft, that is a very likely scenario, as she probably answered their in-range call over the radio when they were nearing arrival. If my memory serves me correctly, the Allegiant MD-80s are not equipped with ACARs, so when the aircraft is approaching the aircraft, the non-flying pilot will radio the station ahead of time to relay any special requests for passengers requiring special handling, such as wheelchair assistance, any provisions needed on the aircraft, mechanical issues that may need to be addressed upon arrival, etc. Also included in this call is the aircraft's estimated time of arrival at the gate, so the ground personnel will be prepared to handle the incoming flight. In response, the ops agent will provide gate information and any other special instructions the crew may need to know about before landing. In this case, the captain was most likely the non-flying pilot, so the gate agent very well may have spoken to him or her directly before landing. While I agree that gate agents don't always relay the most accurate information, in this case, she was probably telling the truth. Signed, First Officer S. So it's always good to get clarification about these kind of things because, you know, we make certain assumptions that perhaps we shouldn't. And I'm glad that you were listening, First Officer S, and that you knew something about that. And that's cool. Glad you straightened this out.
I'm trying to remember what the specific issue was. I can't remember off the top of my head. But I think
it was a show that you weren't on.
I wasn't here? Okay. Maybe
someone was complaining that they didn't believe the gate agent when they said they'd spoken directly to the captain and confirmed some information. And he was saying, how could the gate agent possibly speak to the captain?
Never. No.
But in this case, I guess they could have.
Yeah.
Yes, might have done.
Yeah, because we get so used to our big operations and, you know, all the different people and, you know, so the gate agent's not going to be the person talking on the radio to the crew coming in.
But if it's essentially like
I like to say hello to absolutely. Yeah, I like to say hello to absolutely everyone I can. And I tell you what, when it was probably Shanghai or somewhere, or in Tokyo as well. You get off the airplane and there would be a line of about 20 cleaners all waiting to get on once the crew would get on and start their work. And I used to shout, high five, and run down this whole line of cleaners, giving them all high fives. They used to love it. That was very funny. It's very strange English person. What they're doing.
Like, whatever, just humor him.
Yeah.
They're right. They really are all crazy. That's funny. Steve has a question. He writes, greetings to the crew. I'm a proud new member of the APG community. Yeah, welcome. Actually, I listened to 3 of your podcasts back to back on a long flight from ANA,
with
ANA, thank you, from Shanghai to Mexico City via Tokyo. Thanks for keeping me company on what would have been otherwise been a pretty dull Pacific crossing. Steph, why don't you take over, because I'm having trouble with the words again.
Yeah, sure. I can help you with reading here tonight.
Okay.
Where'd you leave off? Anyway. The flight got me thinking, and this is perhaps a question for Nick. I'm interested to know what approach long-haul pilots take to big time zone changes. So say you fly London to San Francisco. I'm guessing you would only get a 48, 72-hour stopover before needing to fly back. Clearly, this is not enough time to fully switch the body clock. So what sleep routine do you take on arrival? Keep on UK time? Or is it a case that over time you just get used to being able to sleep whenever? Would be really interested to hear how a wise old jet jockey like Nick deals with this. I fly long haul more often than I would like, and the jet lag kills me. Thanks to the APG crew for putting together a great show week after week, and for all you do for the aviation community. Steve. So what say you, Nick?
The easy answer to that is maybe we just soak up the pain.
Just embrace it.
Exactly. There are very few strategies that really make life easy dealing with that. There are two main ones. Some people try and stay on a local time from what they were previously acclimatized to, so basically UK time. That kind of keeps their body clock sort of straight, and they eat when their body is likely to demand food, and they sleep when their body is likely to sleep. But problem is that you're now trying to sleep during the day, so that's actually quite hard, because your eyes aren't fooled. Your eyes know it's daylight, and it doesn't matter how well blacked out your room is, it's very hard to convince yourself that it's nighttime. So that can be tough, actually getting to sleep. But once you sleep, you should sleep pretty well. The 48 hours is a tough one. You get in really tired, at an odd time of the day. So you're going to sleep regardless, because you're completely knacked. And you're probably going to sleep for a reasonable length of time. You may even sleep way longer than you expect to, because at the point at which you've had enough sleep, your body's circadian rhythm is actually in a sleep period. And it carries on through that sleep period. So there are times when I've actually got up after like 16 hours of sleep feeling dreadful, because my body's been in, aching because I've been lying for so long. And sometimes, of course, it's the opposite. You go to sleep, but you quite quickly hit the point at which your body would normally wake up, and then you can't get back to sleep again. My personal way of dealing with this is I go to sleep straight away, because I'm usually too tired to stay awake, and I sleep until I naturally wake up. And then I try and do things on a local time, because, it's daylight outside. I want to enjoy myself. I don't want to be awake in the wee hours in some city that's, no one's around except, people you don't necessarily want to mix with, so you don't want to really go out of the hotel and do anything. The rest of the crew is normally not around. So I try and stay up during the day in whatever city I'm in. And then when eventually I just can't stay awake any longer, I go to bed. Then, of course, inevitably you try and sleep for a few hours before the flight. And if you can, that's great. Can't, well, that's just bad luck. You just grit your teeth and just try and plow through the flight home. So there's no easy way to do it, and one of the reasons that I am now trying to get on to even more part-time, and I've just been granted permission to go now to 75% of a full roster, is because I'm just finding it increasingly hard to cope with the amount of jet lag that I'm suffering on these trips. So no real easy way, and what's more, it's not good for your health. So if you can avoid it, do. If you can't, well, sorry, mate, that's it.
So you don't want to live the life of a vampire?
No, that's not my thing. I mean, it's just that if you want to go to see a museum, or go out and have a nice, all the restaurants are closed,
or an APG meetup.
Yeah, or
right?
something like that, anything like that. Yeah. So, it's doing that, sticking to local time or UK time, it just doesn't work for me socially. I mean, I want to enjoy myself down there. That's one of the reasons I join the airline I'm with and enjoy long haul. I don't really want to hide away. Yeah. Having said that, it usually takes me 2, perhaps 3 days to get over a trip before my sleep pattern gets back to normal in the UK after a 4-day trip. So that's just something I've got used to. And my wife expects me to only have half a brain most of the time.
That's good.
Yeah.
I was going to make a comment there, but I'll withhold that.
That was an easy target.
It was an easy target.
Yeah. The old softball there.
Sure.
Come on, swing at it. Hit it.
So, well, my bad. I don't know why we don't get half a brain all the time, but
there you go.
But I guess it's different too if you're the pilot or crew member versus if you're a passenger. Strategies are potentially going to be different, and if you're just a lowly passenger on these long haul flights, if you have the opportunity to sleep, that's great. But there are a lot of people out there who just cannot sleep anywhere outside of a proper bed, even if you do end up lucky enough to be in a nice lay flat seat and with amenities and stuff. Some people just can't do that. So, all good advice there. If you can sleep on an aircraft, definitely take advantage of that, because that will help you hit the ground running when you get to your destination, presuming you're not, operating the flight in some fashion.
Yeah, the flights when I'm passengering and I get some sleep and I only drink water, I can actually arrive at the other end feeling pretty good, go out and do something. But I'm usually too keen to try out the wines and watch a few movies, and I get suckered in.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I'm going to try and hit the ground running on Friday in London, so we'll see how that goes.
Good luck.
So both Steph and I and your brothers, I guess, will be traveling through the late night, early morning hours tomorrow night, Friday morning.
Correct.
On the way over to London.
Yep.
Yeah, you'll be sort of pretty useless in the morning and wanting to stay up well past midnight, I guess.
Well, we're going to have to be kind of useful in the morning because we plan on doing a lot of stuff. So.
Yeah.
You do. I'm not going to do anything.
I do.
No. Just going to sit around with a cup of coffee and then turn that into a beer later.
Yeah, I'll be pretty worthless in my normal routine.
Again, is that any? No, just kidding.
No.
The two of you are just.
Hit it again. Okay. That's my Louisville Slugger bat.
Your personalized one, correct?
Yeah. Well, actually, the personalized one is up there in a stand above us, but this is the one they give to everybody. No name or personalization on it. A little bit smaller. I use it to, crush the roaches. No, I'm just kidding.
Crush the slug. Is that slugger?
Yes, the slugger. Yeah, that's very good. Okay, one more piece of feedback from someone that, if you're familiar with our little APG community, you've heard of Jen Niffer. She sent us some audio feedback, and it's relating to a question from episode 303. So take it away, Jen.
Hello, APG crew and community. It's Jen Niffer here. For those of you who don't know me, I work in the accounting department for a medium-sized Midwestern airport. Back on episode 303, I believe it was Ralph who submitted some feedback and asked about how various fees, like landing fees and ground handling fees, are billed. The short answer is, it depends. Every airport is different. The airport authority that I work for runs 3 airports, and they're all different from each other. It depends on whether the carrier is considered signatory, which means they have signed a lease agreement with us for gate and ticketing space, or have committed to providing a certain number of flights, or if they're non-signatory. Signatory airlines get a discounted rate. Non-signatory airlines pay a little bit more. At the passenger airport, we don't charge turn fees. The airlines have to arrange that on their own, either by having their own crews to handle all the ground services, or they might outsource that and go with a third-party company who provides that. But at the cargo airport, for example, we do provide all the ground handling. So there we do charge turn fees. So it gets very complicated, and I could go on and on about all the different charges and what we charge where, but I really think your best bet, if you're curious about an airport's rates and charges, is to go to their website. Most airports will list that information online. Same thing if you're talking about general aviation, check the FBO's website. Most FBOs will list what they're charging for fuel and parking and so on. And that's really going to be your best bet. So I hope this helps answer your question. And I just want to say once again how much I love the show. Keep up the good work, Captain Jeff and crew. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Always great to hear from you, Jen. And
Absolutely.
Thank you for kind of letting us know your particular airports and how all that is done. But as you said, I guess it's different everywhere you go. But I didn't realize they would actually publish their landing fees and other fees on their websites. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I feel like
I'm
usually
interested to look up to see how much it would cost to land an A340 there.
Probably don't want to know the answer to that. Like we were discussing today when
right?
Exactly. If I'm not, but still, it's like we were awaiting de-icing today in Cleveland. By the way, they do a really nice job. They have a good process up there. Very quick. And I was thinking to myself, I wonder how much money this is costing Acme to just de-ice the wings and tail of our 88 this morning. Probably a lot of money. Thousands of dollars. And it was interesting because we were trying to decide whether or not just to go with the de-icing, the type 1 fluid, and not do the other type 4 fluid that is the anti-icing layer that they put on. And I know that's much more expensive as well. But we decided to play it safe and do that because we learned as we were taxiing to the de-ice pad that our wheels up time shifted like almost another half an hour. And we were looking at the sky trying to decide whether or not to gamble on whether it was going to start snowing again or not, because if it did start snowing and we only did the type 1 treatment to the wings, we'd have to go again. Yeah, so we decided to go with the longer, more expensive option, I guess, just to play it safe so that we would be ready to go. And our holdover time, I think it extended to almost 2 hours. So we figured that would do it. So
that sounds good. I mean, I was watching Mike's posts today with interest, showing all the de-icing slots and how they can de-ice 49 aircraft. And I was thinking, well, I bet they can't do that simultaneously. And but they might be able to. I think he said 49 in an hour.
In an hour, yeah. It was
where?
Well, was that Atlanta? I think it was.
Oh, that can't be right.
Really? Well, where was that? He was showing all the.
He did.
Maybe on paper.
Ground charts. He was showing all these ground
theoretically.
charts.
Theoretically, on paper, maybe, but tell you what, it doesn't happen that fast at all.
Yeah, I was thinking, well, you can de-ice them all, but you can't get them airborne. I mean, you can't get 49 airplanes airborne in an hour. Or
oh, yeah. We can.
Sure you can.
Yeah, we absolutely do every day. More than that.
Well, normally you need more than 1 minute between aircraft because you've got to have wake separation. I guess if you're using more than run one day, it's fine. I'm thinking Heathrow.
Yeah, we're using sometimes 3 of them to launch.
All right. Okay. In that case, that will be feasible. Then.
It's when you look at our actual arrival rates and departure rates at Atlanta, it's just like
it's astounding. It's
far above any of the other airports in the country, in the world, in fact. It's amazing.
That's impressive. Then.
Chicago O'Hare comes close-ish.
It comes close. Yes, you're right. It does. They're second to Atlanta's. But,
I'll never forget my first damn takeoff from Chicago when we were told to line up, and they say, "Be ready for immediate takeoff." And I'm going, "What?" and there was a guy taking off, crossing our runway, and another guy on an approach to cross our runway, and this guy spattered us off between the two of these fellas, and I thought, geez.
They're very impressive there. All those converging runways, it's just amazing to me that
so
they get as much done.
In the gap between two airplanes, and it was not a big gap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're good at what they do there at O'Hare, for sure. Yeah, I think the thing that helps Atlanta is the fact that all of our runways are parallel, so there's none of that converging nonsense, which usually works out okay, unless you have a really, really strong wind from the north or the south. Yeah.
And it's like, well, shoot.
Yeah, should have had another runway, I guess, that went in a different direction, but oh well. We did at one time, actually, but they decided to make it into a taxiway. All right. That is it for today's show. A little bit shorter version of the APG this week. And it was great seeing everybody joining us live in the chat room. Thank you for all of your help. And let's see, if you're new to the show and you want to learn more about it, you can head over to our website, which is the airlinepilotguide.com. And you can learn about the individual crew members and the community and merchandise and the coffee fund and all kinds of stuff over there at that site. So check it out. We also have smartphone, tablet apps for both iOS and Android. And you can find out about how you can, you just go to your app store, the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, and do a search for Airline Pilot Guy. Should show up. It's free. And it's ad-free, and it's a great way to keep up with the community and the show. Let's see, social media.
Social media, you can find us on Twitter using the handle @APG Crew. You can also head over to Facebook, facebook.com/airlinepilotguy. So all kinds of fun stuff going on, both of those social media outlets.
And you forgot about another one called Slack.
We do have one more, yes.
Hang on.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. On Slack, we share news and ideas.
Why are you yelling? Sorry.
He's trying to wake us all up.
Okay. Oh, come on. Talk to us, Hillel. Now I think he's upset. He's upset with me.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team.
He's always talking at inappropriate times.
We share news and ideas. We suggest episode and plain tales topics. We plan meetups and...
Okay. Now we're going to go back to that.
APG listeners, please join us on our Slack team. On Slack, we share news and ideas. We suggest episode and plain tales topics. We plan meetups and events. To get into the Slack team, please send me a tweet with your preferred email address to @HI11E1, and I'll send you an invitation. That's Hillel @HI11E1, and see you in Slack.
Thank you, Hillel, for that. And we're going to see all of you listening to the show right now who are going to be at the big PTUK 200th episode celebration this weekend in just a couple of days. So looking forward to that. And until next time, wishing you clear skies, unlimited visibility, and tailwinds. Take care, and God bless.
Cheers, y'all.
Bye, you wonderful people, once I've unmuted.
Yay!
Nice one, Jeff.
Oh, I meant to play some of this music. I'll do it right now. This is Dr. John Brown, and his lovely wife, Brenda.
Giving you permission to play his music?
He did. He gave me permission.
And how about
Google?
Java Jive?
No, nothing on that yet.
Nothing on that yet.
I think they're still down in the islands or something. They may not be coming back. Haven't heard from John in a while.
Oh no.
No, I'm just saying that. I'm joking. Sure, he's back practicing doctorate.
Doctorate.
Yeah.
Doctory things.
Doctory stuff.
You know.
Anyway, she's such a good singer. And listen to those keyboards in the background. Wow. Amazing. All right. I'll turn them down.
It was nice, though. Very nice.
Yeah, it's a great CD. I was finally able to rip the CD and get it into digital form on my old iMac.
Hang on a minute, Jeff. Isn't a CD already in digital form?
Oh, I'm sorry. Good point. In non-physical format digital form. Yeah. Because, none of my like my MacBook Pro, and I don't really have anything anymore that has a CD, an optical drive in it.
Oh, I had to
anymore.
go and buy one.
I have one. I have a
I got
external
one
one.
I can plug in.
Yeah.
Which I rarely use, but
yeah. So that I knew I would rarely use it, so I thought I was walking by our old iMac. I forgot what year that was. I mean, it's pretty old. I mean, the latest operating system I can get on it is 10.6, I think, or 10, maybe even less than that. Anyway, and I thought, oh, that has a CD drive. I can go ahead and, rip that and then use Dropbox to, or actually I used a little USB stick key thing. Yeah. Anyway, long story short, I have it in my iTunes library now.
Excellent.
Well, that's.
Is there some place where
nice.
that music is available for purchase?
For
download?
I
Or
don't
did it have
think
to
so.
come-
I think
Yeah.
they had a bunch pressed, but I don't think they're selling it. John, if you're listening, let us
There
know.
was a request in the chat room for a link to the music.
Yeah. So yeah, I looked on iTunes and CD Baby. I wonder if a CD Baby has it. I do a quick search. CD Baby. And then let's see results. We'll do a search for what's it called? Jazz It Up. Jazz It Up, Brenda Scott. There it is.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Let's see. Wonder if I do a search for Brenda Scott first. Although I think there's somebody else that is a singer whose name is Brenda Scott too. Barry J. Little, Love and All That, Brenda Carroll, no, okay, let's do Jazz It Up.
Mind you, jazz is kind of a bit of an acquired taste, isn't it?
You don't like jazz?
No, I don't say I don't like jazz. I
Mhm.
like trad jazz. I don't like kind of free.
No, I don't like that modern stuff.
Yeah.
No.
So I like to be able to recognize the tune and know when someone's playing badly.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. Some of that stuff is just like I can't listen to this. It's not. I'm not enjoying listening to this.
No, because I just can't predict where the music's going, and I'm no recall. And the next time I hear it, it'll be completely different anyway.
Yeah.
So, that's quite helpful.
Well, I don't think they have it on CD Baby. So maybe John, listening to not CD Baby, C as in C, Charlie, Delta Baby, CD Baby, Micah. Yes. Micah's old-fashioned, not old-fashioned. Oh, he's probably using his speech to text dictation thing. I'm old-fashioned. If I can't hum it or whistle it, it's not music to me. Yes, the show is over, Jen. You just missed your you missed yourself.
Your feedback. We played it.
Did you just join us?
She was here earlier, I thought.
Oh.
Did she leave? And I'm not sure what.
Maybe she had to do like work.
Yeah.
Well,
I just found out I'm not working tomorrow, or at least as of right now, I'm not. So.
Oh, they're gonna keep it closed?
Yeah. Which is, I don't know.
Jen,
I think
you'll
it's going to
glad
be icy.
know-
Yes.
Sorry, yeah. I was just going to tell Jen she'll be glad to know that there is actually an audio version of the show, if you missed the live one, that you can get on a podcast.
Cool.
Cool.
Love that technology.
Yeah.
Oh, she had to duck out. All right. So I suppose I should shut this thing down and start working on getting the audio edited. And
Yeah, you've got a busy time because you're flying to England tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow evening.
Yes.
There's two flights.
One. Sorry.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
There's two flights. One that leaves at like 5:30, and then one leaves like at 7:30. And I think I'm going to take the later one. That I think it has more potential for being up in the I was going to say the Acme One, the front end of the airplane.
The nicer lay flat seats.
Yeah.
Yep. And
So-
go through the door, turn left.
Yes, that
Much
section.
nicer. Excellent.
Yeah, the last time I went, Farnborough in 2016, I think I got the last one over and the last one back.
Oh, you're the
seat
man.
in that section, so I was pretty lucky. So,
but you're pretty senior, so one would hope.
yeah, well, I looked at the people that were already listed. That doesn't necessarily mean anything because there might be people like me who haven't listed yet. But I'm senior to everybody that I see on the list, so that's good. That is good.
The usual thing that screws that kicks me into the back is some director with a family of 10 who, all pitch up and take every free upper class seat, and the rest of us go, "Oh, for God's sake!" Guys, only been working for the company for 3 years.
And how do they get ahead of you? I missed that.
Well, if it's a
higher
director,
up in the company.
they're a director, a senior executive.
Oh, see, we don't have that deal at my company. They it's all
So, like,
seniority.
if the president of Acme pitched up with his 10 family members, but
Oh,
you've
wait a
been
minute.
working there for longer.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Maybe there is a system. Yeah, because you could have a new CEO or whatever
could have a
that
new
has only been
CEO.
with the company for like a year. I
Yeah.
bet his seniority is
Higher.
his number is
I
like.
bet they get whatever seat on the plane they want.
Yeah, you're probably
I think
right.
so.
Oh, never mind.
I think so.
Yeah.
And
Darn
of course,
those people.
Richard pitches up every now and again.
Does he?
Yeah.
Not
I
so
can't
much.
imagine him sitting in the back.
Well, actually, he's very good like that. He does. Yeah, he often and what's more, he usually walks around the whole airplane chatting to everyone. He's he's not at all up himself. He's very good.
Our previous CEO was like that. He would never sit in first class. He would always sit in the back or on the jump seat. And
Yeah.
Richard Anderson, great man. I think we're still living off what he did for our company.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah. So, okay.
Right, well, I've got a pack in the morning.
We'll go. Yeah. So, what are you doing? Where are you going? Why do you have to pack?
Well,
You doing anything exciting tomorrow?
no,
Important?
not at all, just my little chat at Cosford, but that's sort of like a 4-hour drive, and then Cosford, we're overnighting there, and then Nev and I and whoever else is going to be up there, we're going to beat feet for London. Should get down there late morning, and hopefully we'll find certainly Jeff around. Steph, you'll be bring chauffeured around London by your brothers and going and seeing the London Eye, by the way, apparently is being repaired.
That's all right. I've done it. I don't think they'd want to do it.
I don't think
honest.
it's very.
It's not that exciting. The only reason I did it was because it was pouring rain and I wanted to get out of the rain, and it was the closest thing to me at the time. I was like walking past it. I was like,
it's about 10 pubs there, and you wanted to go to the London Eye. Okay,
yeah, whatever.
But so we'll see you probably at the hotel, I suspect, Jeff. Although we won't be able to check in till probably 2 or 3 in the afternoon. We'll at least be able to use it as an RV. I don't know when your room. I mean, you can't check in, I think, or get a room until the afternoon normally.
Oh, I forgot about that. I'm acting as a regular person, not a crew member.
Yeah, I'm afraid so.
Huh. Okay. And I'm going to have to figure out exactly how to do the public transit to from the airport to.
It's not difficult.
Yeah.
No. There's people selling tickets on the fast train as you come out of your, pass customs and start entering the terminal. There'll be people selling tickets, but basically you just get the fast.
Heathrow Express, right?
Heathrow Express, yeah.
It's purple. It's got big purple signs.
Purple. Do I need currency in the local currency?
You could probably use your credit card.
Got a credit card machine. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Very good.
There's plenty of Travelex there anyway.
So Pip says it's super easy, Jeff. But
It is easy.
even for me, Pip,
I've managed it. So.
Okay. Well, you're much smarter than I am.
That's not true.
Neville, you won't see the Audi TT in your rearview mirror. You'll see the Volvo. Considering the weather up north, I've decided to take 4-wheel drive.
Sensible.
Doing off-roading?
just in case, yeah.
Yeah.
Just
The unexpected off-roading, like
Yeah.
that Pegasus 737.
My old TT was a Quattro, and that was very good in the snow. The new one I've got is only front-wheel drive, and that's a bit squirrely. So I'm going to leave that to my darling wife to drive, because there's no snow down here. And I'm going to head north into the wilds of the Midlands and up north in the four-wheel drive, and I should probably mount a few machine guns in the windows and things to fight away the natives.
Are you going to? I was going to say. I was going to name a couple states here, but maybe you might have listeners from those places. So probably not.
Yeah, exactly. I hope I'll be safe. If I can get some locals to look after me and show me the safe places to go, I should be all right.
Well, Pip thinks you'll get the senior.
Yeah, I see that. That's really funny. Oops, wrong one. Oh well.
Never
right.
A1 bounds. Yes, quite right. And you better get your pup in a pile as well, because you hit the ground, I think, at 11:45-ish. So land early, get straight through, get in your car like by noon, because
wait, who? What?
Going to be. Well, I'm going to get there way before him. We were going to have a meal, have some lunch up there, but I don't think Ned's going to make lunch. He's going to be lucky to make the museum tour.
Mm. Oh yeah, he's up north too right now, but much further north, right?
Yeah, he's Glasgow to. Why on earth he didn't get a ticket to from Glasgow to Manchester? I don't know, but I guess it's because his car's not parked there. That would probably be a good reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, kids.
All right.
Things to do, people to see, places to go.
Quite right. By the way, Nev, yellow is a very easy color to target.
Oh boy.
The banana bomb.
The fellow with the banana sling and the banana bomb.
What?
Nothing. No.
On that note.
No, we're not going there.
Okay. Well, see you, everybody. We're going
Good
to stop the
night.
broadcast, and
bye.
we'll see you next week.
Bye, folks. Yeah,
God willing. Bye.
Cheers.